The human body, in all of its detail and complexity, did not arrive in the world as it is today. Instead, it is the result of an ancient and continuous story, a gradual unfolding across millions upon millions of years. This story is what we call evolution, a quiet and patient process in which life takes on new forms, adapts to shifting environments, and carries forward traces of everything that came before. When we look at ourselves in the mirror, we see a reflection not only of our immediate features, our eyes, our skin, the lines of our hands, but also of this deeper past, written invisibly into the cells and tissues that sustain us. To understand the evolution of the human body is to take part in a gentle journey backward through time, moving step by step from the present into the ancient origins of life itself. At its heart, evolution is simply change across generations. Traits that are useful in one environment tend to be passed along and preserved, while those that hinder survival gradually fade away. This quiet filtering process, known as natural selection, shapes every living thing, from the smallest insect to the tallest tree. In humans, it has influenced not only the outward appearance of our bodies, but also the way our organs work, the strength of our bones, the size of our brains, and even the patterns of our sleep. Nothing within us exists without reason. Every detail carries with it an echo of the past, a memory of the conditions in which our ancestors once lived. It is soothing to remember that our bodies are not machines built overnight, but rather living testaments to survival. Each system within us, each layer of skin and curve of muscle, is not only an answer to the challenges of our ancestors, but also a gift passed forward through countless generations. In a way, we are like a manuscript written and rewritten over billions of years. Some passages are clear and striking, others are faint, nearly erased, but still present. To read this manuscript, one does not need to search for sudden revelations. Instead, one listens softly to the continuity of life, to the gradual ways in which small differences accumulate and over long spans of time become profound. The idea of evolution can feel vast, even overwhelming. It stretches far beyond the human timescale, beyond the length of empires or civilizations. While a human lifetime may last decades, and a culture may endure for centuries, the story of life on Earth is measured in billions of years. Across this span, tiny changes barely noticeable from one generation to the next gather like drops of water filling a pool. At first, it seems still and unchanging, but given enough time, the pool overflows and the world is reshaped. Evolution is patient in this way. It does not hurry, and yet it never stops. For humans, the most significant aspect of evolution is the way it has shaped our bodies for particular environments. Our ancestors were once small primates living in the trees, grasping branches with long fingers and relying on keen vision to navigate the leafy canopy. Later, as conditions shifted, some of these ancestors came down to the ground, standing taller and moving on two legs. This change in posture freed the hands, allowing them to become tools of fine movement, eventually capable of shaping stone, weaving fibers, and tracing patterns in the air. The transformation from tree dweller to upright walker was not sudden. It unfolded slowly, bone by bone, joint by joint, until an entirely new form emerged. It is in this slow reshaping that we see the power of evolution. The spine, once curved for climbing and swinging, became balanced for upright walking. The pelvis broadened, hips grew stronger, and the legs lengthened to carry the body across wide landscapes. Even the placement of the skull shifted, with the head balancing more directly on the top of the spine. These changes did not appear all at once. They accumulated through countless lifetimes, each one carrying small modifications that together transformed the way humans moved through the world. Evolution is not only about bones and muscles, however. It also touches the less visible aspects of life, such as the chemistry of the blood, the rhythm of the heartbeat, and the complexity of the brain. Our ability to regulate body temperature, for example, has deep evolutionary roots. Where other mammals rely on thick fur, humans developed sweat glands and hairless skin, turning the entire surface of the body into a cooling system. This adaptation allowed our ancestors to walk and run long distances under the sun, giving them a unique endurance that few other creatures could match. Such traits are quiet reminders that our bodies have always been shaped by the demands of survival. Another gentle truth is that evolution never moves in a straight line. It is not a ladder climbing toward perfection, but rather a branching tree, with many paths explored and many forms tried. The human body is not the final word in this process. It is simply one possibility among countless others, one branch that grew in a particular direction. Alongside us, countless other species evolved their own bodies, each suited to their particular environments. Some of these species are our close relatives, like chimpanzees and gorillas, while others are distant cousins, sharing only the faintest memory of a common ancestor deep in time. Together, they remind us that we are part of a much larger family of life, bound by the same evolutionary threads. To fall asleep to this story is to rest within the continuity of existence. Evolution reassures us that change is natural, that our bodies are not fragile accidents but resilient forms, shaped by the steady hand of time. The features we take for granted, our eyes that open to the morning light, our hands that reach for food, our breath that fills the lungs, are not random. They are the outcome of long histories, of ancestors adapting to forests, plains, rivers, and skies. To lie quietly and listen to this history is to recognize that we too are part of something far greater than ourselves. In a way, the story of evolution is also a story of balance. Traits that endure are those that fit well within their environment. The human body, for all of its complexity, is a balance between strength and flexibility, endurance and delicacy, stability and change. Too much of one without the other would not survive, and so we find ourselves here, not as flawless beings, but as workable ones well enough adapted to thrive, yet always carrying within us the possibility of further change. As the night deepens and the mind begins to drift, it is comforting to think of evolution not as a struggle, but as a continuous flow. Each of us is part of this flow, a brief moment in a river that began long before us and will continue long after. The human body is not separate from this river. It is one of its currents, moving gently forward, shaped by the terrain through which it passes. By listening to the story of evolution, we are simply listening to the quiet voice of time itself. 2. The story of the human body, and of all living beings, begins not with bones or skin, but with the earliest whispers of life itself. To understand how the body came to be, we must first look back to a time long before humans, before animals. We travel deep into Earth's history, to a world where the planet was still young, where oceans were forming, and where the first stirrings of life began to take shape. It is a time so distant that it is measured not in years, or even centuries, but in billions of years. In that expanse, the Earth itself was a restless and changing sphere, its surface cooling from molten beginnings, its seas gathering minerals, its air filled with gases, unlike the atmosphere we breathe today. Out of these conditions, through slow and natural processes, life emerged. The earliest Earth, about 4.5 billion years ago, was harsh and unstable. Volcanoes erupted with force, releasing steam, carbon dioxide, methane, and other gases into the air. The surface was battered by meteorites and stirred by shifting tectonic plates. Yet in these very conditions, ingredients for life began to gather. Water condensed and collected into oceans. Within these oceans, molecules floated, collided, and combined. Slowly, over time, the simple building blocks of biology appeared: amino acids, nucleotides, and other organic compounds. These tiny molecules, so unassuming, held within them the potential for life as we know it. They were the alphabet from which the book of life would eventually be written. Scientists believe that energy played an important role in guiding these molecules toward complexity. Lightning flashing across stormy skies may have sparked chemical reactions. Heat from underwater volcanic vents may have driven further combinations. Sunlight filtering through the primitive atmosphere offered another source of power. Bit by bit, through countless repetitions, the molecules that would later form proteins and genetic material became more common. In this way, chemistry slowly gave rise to biology. Nothing about this process was hurried. Each step was simple, but over immense stretches of time, simplicity became complexity, and the first living systems began to take form. Among the most significant steps was the emergence of molecules that could copy themselves. Self-replication is a quiet miracle, for it allows information to be passed from one generation to the next. The earliest such molecules may have been forms of RNA, a cousin of DNA. Unlike DNA, which is stable and primarily serves as a storage of information, RNA is more flexible. It can both store information and act as a catalyst, helping chemical reactions along. Imagine a strand of RNA floating in the ancient ocean, not alive in the way we think of living things, but capable of making copies of itself. Each copy carried slight differences, small errors introduced along the way. Some of these differences made the molecules more stable, others less so. Those that lasted longer, or copied themselves more effectively, naturally became more common. Here, in this microscopic drama, we see the earliest traces of evolution itself. With replication came variation, and with variation came the potential for natural selection. The ancient oceans became laboratories of change, filled with molecules competing, combining, and transforming. Over time, protective structures formed around these fragile systems. Fatty molecules, known as lipids, gathered into membranes, forming small bubbles that shielded the delicate chemistry inside. These simple enclosures were the ancestors of cells. Within their walls, reactions could happen in a more stable environment. Molecules inside could interact with one another more efficiently. Slowly, the first true cells emerged: tiny, self-contained packages of life. Floating in the sea, these early cells were simple compared to the cells in our bodies today. They lacked a nucleus or any complex compartments. They were what we now call prokaryotes, similar to modern bacteria and archaea. Yet even in their simplicity, they were astonishingly capable. They could take in energy, perhaps from sunlight or from chemical reactions at deep-sea vents. They could grow, divide, and make more of themselves. And most importantly, they could change. Over vast stretches of time, some of these cells developed new abilities, branching into different forms of life. From these first prokaryotes, all living things ultimately descend. It is worth pausing here to consider how connected we are to these earliest beings. Though billions of years have passed, every cell in our bodies carries reminders of them. Our DNA, coiled inside the nucleus of each cell, is a direct continuation of the self-replicating molecules that first appeared in the primordial seas. The membranes that surround our cells echo those ancient bubbles of lipid, forming a barrier between inside and outside. Even the way we use energy, breaking down sugars and carrying electrons along intricate pathways, has roots in the chemical processes of early prokaryotes. In essence, the most fundamental aspects of our biology are ancient, inherited across an unbroken chain of life, stretching back to Earth's beginnings. As time moved forward, evolution continued to weave new patterns. Some prokaryotic cells learn to capture sunlight through photosynthesis, releasing oxygen as a byproduct. This gradual release of oxygen into the atmosphere transformed the planet, paving the way for more complex life. Other prokaryotes developed the ability to consume oxygen, unlocking a new and efficient way of extracting energy from food. Still others formed partnerships. One of the most remarkable of these partnerships gave rise to the first eukaryotic cells, which are larger, more complex, and contain specialized structures. Within them, tiny once independent prokaryotes became permanent residents. The mitochondria in our cells, often described as powerhouses, are descendants of these ancient symbiotic partners. This quiet merger marked another turning point, one that eventually made the evolution of multicellular organisms possible. From the first spark of life to the appearance of eukaryotic cells, billions of years passed. Time smoothed out the improbable into the inevitable. Life persisted, adapted, and diversified. The human body, though far in the future, was already beginning to take shape in the hidden language of molecules and cells. Each step, no matter how small, was necessary. Without self-replicating molecules, there could be no heredity. Without membranes, there could be no cells. Without oxygen, there could be no energy-rich metabolism. Each development was a foundation, and together they built the possibility of every living form we see today. To think of the origins of life in this way is to feel a quiet sense of continuity. The body you inhabit is not separate from this ancient history. It is a direct continuation. The water in your blood recalls the oceans in which life began. The cells of your skin carry within them the lessons of their earliest ancestors. The DNA in your nucleus is a text written long ago, yet still legible, still alive. As you breathe in and out, as your heart beats steadily, you are performing actions made possible by processes refined over billions of years. In the stillness of night, reflecting on the origins of life can be deeply calming. It reminds us that existence is not an abrupt arrival, but a gentle unfolding, from simple molecules to living cells, from cells to complex organisms, and from those organisms eventually to us. Life is a single, continuous thread. The human body is the latest verse in a poem that began in the quiet waters of an early earth. To listen to that poem is to remember that we are part of a story far greater than ourselves, a story that began long ago, and that continues with every breath we take. 3. From simple cells to complex bodies, the first cells, small and unadorned, marked the beginning of life's long journey. They were simple in structure, with no nucleus to contain their genetic material, no intricate compartments to divide one process from another. Yet in their modest design, they carried the essential qualities of life. They could copy themselves, gather energy, and maintain the fragile balance of their inner chemistry. From these beginnings, a quiet and gradual path unfolded, leading eventually to the immense complexity of multicellular organisms, and in time, to the human body. The movement from simple cells to complex bodies was not swift, nor was it direct. It was a story told in increments, each generation carrying forward small adjustments, until the possibilities of life expanded beyond what the earliest cells could ever have contained. One of the great steps forward in this journey was the development of eukaryotic cells. These cells were different from their prokaryotic ancestors in profound ways. Within them, the genetic material was not left loose but was enclosed within a protective nucleus. Around the nucleus, other compartments appeared, each devoted to particular tasks. Some handled energy, some processed proteins, some stored materials. This internal organization allowed eukaryotic cells to become larger and more efficient. The innovation did not arise all at once but through symbiosis, a merging of separate lives into one. Long ago, Certain prokaryotes entered into close partnerships with others, providing benefits in exchange for safety. Over time, these partnerships became permanent. The mitochondria in human cells are direct descendants of once independent organisms that specialized in energy production. Their presence gave eukaryotic cells the ability to generate energy in abundance, fueling more complex activities. The emergence of eukaryotic cells was like opening a door to new possibilities. With greater energy and organization, these cells could evolve into forms that were impossible for their simpler ancestors. Some eukaryotic organisms remained single-celled, floating in oceans or crawling through sediments, but others began to cluster together. At first, these clusters were loose associations, groups of cells that gained advantage by staying near one another. Gradually, the associations became more structured. Cells began to specialize, some devoted to gathering nutrients, others to movement, and still others to reproduction. For the first time, life was experimenting with division of labor. Out of this division came the beginnings of multicellularity, a way of living that allowed organisms to grow larger, adapt more precisely, and explore new environments. The leap from single cells to multicellular beings was one of the most important transitions in the history of life. It was not a single event, but a pattern that occurred many times in different groups of organisms. Plants, fungi, and animals all arose independently from unicellular ancestors. Each time, the same principle appeared. By working together, cells could achieve more than they could alone. In the human body, this principle is taken to its highest degree. Trillions of cells coexist, each one carrying the same genetic instructions, yet each expressing only part of that code, shaped into muscle, nerve, skin, or bone. The harmony of this collaboration gives rise to the form we recognize as human. Among the earliest multicellular organisms, shapes were simple. Sheets of cells formed flat bodies that absorbed nutrients directly from surrounding water. Tubular forms allowed for internal spaces where fluids could circulate. Over long spans of time, structures became more elaborate. Tentacles appeared for capturing food, shells for protection, and simple nervous systems for sensing the world. Each new feature emerged from gradual modifications of existing cells and tissues. The evolution of tissues was a particularly important step. When cells of similar type gathered and performed a shared role, tissues like muscle and connective fibers could develop. From tissues came organs, and from organs, full organ systems. The journey from simple multicellular life to complex animals unfolded over hundreds of millions of years. The oceans became filled with creatures of increasing sophistication. Sponges, though still among the simplest animals, revealed the power of cellular cooperation. They filtered water through their porous bodies, extracting nutrients with specialized cells. Jellyfish introduced nerve nets and muscle-like tissues, allowing for movement and response to stimuli. Worms and early bilaterians developed bilateral symmetry, a body plan with two mirrored sides, setting the stage for directed motion and more complex organization. Each stage added a layer of refinement to the living forms, preparing the ground for the eventual appearance of vertebrates, the group to which humans belong. The human body still carries echoes of these early innovations. Our nervous system, with its intricate network of neurons, has roots in the first nerve nets of jellyfish-like ancestors. Our digestive tract, long and coiled, recalls the simple tubular bodies of ancient worms. Our bilateral symmetry, so ordinary to us now, was once a radical adaptation, giving organisms a clear front and back, left and right, head and tail. The very structure of our development, beginning as a single fertilized cell that divides and differentiates into tissues and organs, mirrors the steps taken by evolution long ago. In this way, our own growth from embryo to adult retraces the path from simplicity to complexity. It is important to notice how patient this process was. The shift from prokaryotic to eukaryotic cells took billions of years. The rise of multicellular organisms unfolded slowly, with long ages of experimentation. At each point, life remained balanced between what had been achieved and what was possible next. Evolution does not rush. It does not aim toward a fixed destination. Instead, it explores, allowing what is useful to persist and what is less effective to fade away. In this gradual rhythm, the building blocks of the human body were assembled, one feature at a time. The story of simple cells becoming complex bodies is also the story of cooperation. Each cell within a multicellular organism gives up some of its independence for the sake of the whole. A muscle cell does not act as a neuron, nor does a neuron divide like a skin cell. Instead, each one follows its role, trusting that the others will do the same. This quiet harmony is what allows the body to exist as a single, unified being. Without it, complexity would collapse. From the first gatherings of cells in ancient seas to the tissues of the human body, the principle has been the same. Together, many small parts can create something greater than themselves. As we lie quietly and think about this journey, it becomes clear that the human body is not a sudden invention but a slow unfolding, the outcome of countless generations of living experiments. The cells in your body are ancient in design, carrying within them the legacy of the first organisms that learned to enclose themselves within membranes. The organs within you are made of tissues that arose when cells chose cooperation over solitude. The systems that sustain you are built on foundations laid down by creatures that swam, crawled, and drifted through seas long vanished. To understand this is to see yourself not as separate from the deep past, but as its continuation. In the stillness of night, this realization can be soothing. The human body, for all of its intricacy, is a natural outcome of simple beginnings. From the quiet spark of the first self-replicating molecules to the coordinated dance of trillions of cells, the path has been steady and sure. To know this is to rest in the knowledge that complexity, even our own, is simply the patient work of time. And as evolution continues, life will keep reshaping itself, just as it always has, adding new verses to the ancient poem that began with the first cells and has grown into the story of every body that has ever lived. 4. The early chordates. Long before there were humans, long before the great apes, or even the earliest mammals, there lived creatures that carried within them the first hints of the body plan we now recognize as our own. These were the early chordates, small and often overlooked animals of the ancient seas. Their appearance marked a turning point in the history of life, for in their structure we see the origins of the backbone, the nerve cord, and the symmetrical arrangement that defines all vertebrates, including ourselves. To speak of early chordates is to speak of a blueprint, one that would be refined again and again until it produced the human form. The word chordate refers to a group of animals that, at some stage of development, possess a notochord. This is a simple but powerful structure, a flexible rod made of cells that runs along the body, providing support and allowing movement. Unlike the rigid bones of a spine, the notochord bends easily, enabling the animal to swim with gentle undulations. Alongside the notochord, chordates also possess a hollow nerve cord, running above the notochord, which later develops into the spinal cord and brain in more advanced forms. These two features, the notochord and the dorsal nerve cord, are the foundation of our own anatomy, carried forward through time with modifications but never entirely abandoned. The earliest chordates appeared in the oceans more than 500 million years ago, during a period of extraordinary diversification known as the Cambrian explosion. In that ancient sea, life experimented with countless forms, some familiar and some strange beyond imagination. Among these were the first animals to show the hallmarks of the chordate body plan. They were small, soft-bodied creatures, unlikely to attract much notice, yet they carried the seeds of future complexity. One such organism, known from fossils, is Pikaia. Barely 5 centimeters long, it swam with gentle motions, its body supported by a notochord. Its shape was simple, but it represented a profound step, the beginnings of the vertebrate lineage. Another group of early chordates, still with living representatives today, are the lancelets, or Amphioxus. These slender, fish-like creatures burrow into the sand, with only their heads exposed. They have no true bones, no jaws, and no paired fins, yet their bodies contain the essential layout that all vertebrates share. A notochord runs from head to tail. A nerve cord lies just above it. Gill slits allow water to pass through the pharynx, filtering food and aiding in breathing. In their simplicity, lancelets remind us of our earliest ancestors, still holding on to a body plan that would eventually give rise to the most complex animals on Earth. Alongside lancelets, another chordate lineage has survived across time: the tunicates, also known as sea squirts. At first glance, these creatures hardly seem related to humans at all. As adults, they are sac-like animals anchored to rocks, filtering plankton from passing currents. But in their larval stage, they reveal their kinship. The young tunicate swims freely, with a notochord and a nerve cord running along its tail. Only when it settles down does it lose these features, transforming into a sedentary adult. This peculiar life cycle is a living memory of our distant past, showing how the essential chordate structures appeared even in the simplest forms. The importance of the early chordates lies not in their size or strength, but in the framework they introduced. The notochord established a central axis for the body, something around which muscles could anchor and contract. The dorsal nerve cord provided a protected channel for communication signals, linking sensory input to movement. Gill slits introduced the idea of specialized openings for respiration, a theme that would later develop into lungs and complex breathing systems. Even the tail, extending beyond the anus, allowed for more efficient locomotion, setting the stage for powerful swimming and, much later, for walking and balance in terrestrial animals. From these early chordates, the first true vertebrates evolved. In these organisms, the notochord was gradually supplemented and then replaced by a series of stiffened segments, precursors to the modern vertebral column. This change allowed for stronger support and greater flexibility, enabling animals to grow larger and move with greater precision. The early vertebrates were still simple, resembling jawless fish, but they marked the beginning of a long path toward the complex skeleton that supports the human body today. Though separated from us by immense spans of time, the early chordates remain woven into our biology. During human embryonic development, a structure called the notochord appears, guiding the formation of the spine. Later, the notochord itself largely disappears, replaced by the vertebrae, but its influence remains. The hollow nerve cord of our ancestors becomes the spinal cord, carrying signals between brain and body. The gill slits of early chordates reappear as small structures in the human embryo, later reshaping into parts of the ear and throat. These echoes remind us that our own development is a quiet retelling of evolutionary history, a recapitulation of forms that once swam through ancient seas. It is striking to think that creatures so unassuming laid the foundation for all vertebrate life. The small, wriggling bodies of Pikaia, the buried lancelets, the drifting larvae of sea squirts, these were the architects of possibility. Without their simple structures, refined over millions of years, there could be no fish, no reptiles, no mammals, and no humans. The features we take for granted, our ability to walk upright, to sense the world through eyes and ears, to breathe air with lungs are built upon a framework first established in those early chordates. At night, when one reflects upon this history, it can feel almost poetic. The human body, with all of its intricacy, is in part the continuation of a small marine creature that wriggled in the soft sediments of an ancient ocean. That creature knew nothing of its role, nothing of the distant future in which its body plan would give rise to beings who could think, speak, and dream. Yet the continuity is unbroken. Each step in the chain was as real and present as our own existence now. The early chordates were not remarkable in appearance, nor did they dominate their world. They were quiet presences, survivors in a sea of experimentation, but in their quietness, they carried the keys to everything that followed. Their notochords became spines. Their nerve cords became central nervous systems. Their gill slits became lungs, and their tails became engines of motion. Through them, the architecture of the vertebrate body was written, a design flexible enough to produce fish, birds, reptiles, and finally, humans. As we drift into rest, it is calming to imagine these small creatures, moving gently in the waters of 500 million years ago. They swam without awareness of what they would become, yet their simple forms were the beginning of us. To know this is to recognize that the human body is not a sudden invention, but the patient outcome of many lives, layered one upon another, each carrying the pattern forward. The story of early chordates is, in truth, the story of ourselves' soft beginnings, that over time became strong, small motions that became strides, faint outlines that became the human form. 5. Fish and the first backbones. When we trace the story of the human body further along the evolutionary path, we arrive at the oceans once more, where the early chordates gradually gave rise to the first fish. These creatures, appearing more than 500 million years ago, represent one of the most important chapters in our biological history. They were the pioneers of the vertebrate form, the first to take the soft framework of the notochord and surround it with more durable structures, creating the earliest versions of the backbone. From their modest beginnings, an entire lineage of vertebrate life would unfold, a lineage that would eventually lead to reptiles, mammals, primates, and humans. To understand the fish is to understand the first true experiment in building the architecture of the human body. The earliest fish were unlike the sleek and powerful swimmers we know today. They were jawless creatures, soft-bodied and armored with bony plates. Among them were the ostracoderms, small, bottom dwellers that fed by filtering particles from the water or scraping algae from surfaces. Their bodies contained the essential vertebrate blueprint: a backbone composed of cartilage, a head with paired sensory organs, and gill structures for respiration. These innovations, though simple in appearance, established the foundation for all later vertebrate anatomy. The backbone provided greater support than the flexible notochord alone, allowing these animals to grow larger and move with greater strength. The presence of paired sensory organs marked the beginning of a more refined way of perceiving the world, a theme that would later culminate in the complex sensory systems of mammals and humans. As millions of years passed, fish diversified. Some lineages remained jawless, while others developed one of the most transformative adaptations in vertebrate history. This innovation, appearing in the placoderms and early sharks, opened a new world of possibilities. With jaws, fish could grasp, bite, and chew, expanding their diets and enabling them to become active predators rather than passive feeders. The development of jaws also influenced the structure of the skull, shaping the way muscles attached and providing more control over movement. In time, this adaptation would echo through the ages, eventually shaping the human face and our ability to speak and eat. The story of the jaw is thus not only the story of fish, but also the story of the human mouth, teeth, and even voice. Alongside jaws, fish developed paired fins. Early fins were little more than flaps of tissue, but over time they became supported by cartilage and bone, allowing for greater precision in swimming. With paired fins, fish gained control over direction and stability, transforming them into agile navigators of their watery environments. These fins represent the distant ancestors of human arms and legs. The bones within our limbs, the humerus, radius, ulna, femur, tibia, and fibula, can all be traced back to the simple supports of early fish fins. Though the shapes and functions have changed dramatically, the underlying pattern remains. A quiet reminder that every gesture we make carries within it the memory of ancient aquatic ancestors. Another remarkable development among fish was the refinement of the circulatory and respiratory systems. Fish perfected the use of gills, thin-walled structures richly supplied with blood vessels, capable of extracting oxygen from water with great efficiency. To power this system, their hearts developed into muscular pumps, moving blood through a closed network of vessels. These improvements allowed fish to sustain higher activity levels, setting the stage for more complex behaviors. In humans, the basic design of a heart with chambers and a system of blood vessels can be traced back to these early innovations. Though our lungs replaced gills as the site of gas exchange, the principle of circulating oxygen to every cell in the body remains unchanged. The diversity of fish grew rapidly. Cartilaginous fish, such as sharks and rays, emerged with skeletons made not of bone but of cartilage, giving them flexibility and speed. At the same time, bony fish developed hardened skeletons that provided strength and durability. Among these bony fish were two important groups: the ray-finned fishes, which today include the vast majority of modern species, and the lobe-finned fishes, which would eventually give rise to the first land vertebrates. Lobe-finned fish were unique in that their fins contained sturdy, fleshy bases supported by bone, capable of bearing weight in shallow waters. These fins were the prototypes of limbs, the first steps toward walking on land. In creatures like Tiktaalik, a transitional form between fish and amphibians, we see fins that blur into legs, a snapshot of evolution in motion. Beyond their structural innovations, fish also developed complex sensory systems. Lateral lines, running along their bodies, allowed them to detect vibrations in the water. This ability provided a new awareness of their surroundings, an early form of spatial sensitivity that foreshadowed the refinement of human balance and hearing. Some fish evolved electroreception, the ability to sense electric fields, offering yet another way to interact with the environment. These adaptations show how evolution experimented with different ways of perceiving, some of which were preserved and modified, others set aside. In humans, our eyes, ears, and vestibular systems trace their ancestry to these early sensory explorations. As fish continued to diversify, they filled nearly every available niche in aquatic environments. Some became swift predators, others slow grazers, still others ambush hunters or deep-sea dwellers. Each adaptation was a quiet step in exploring the possibilities of the vertebrate body, the skeletal framework, the circulatory system, the nervous system, the sensory organs. All were being refined in ways that would eventually allow vertebrates to move beyond the water and onto land. The story of fish is therefore not confined to the sea. It is the prologue to the story of amphibians, reptiles, mammals, and, ultimately, humans. Even today, the human body carries reminders of its fish ancestry. The arrangement of bones in our limbs reflects the structure of lobe-finned fish. The way our embryos develop gill-like structures, which later transform into parts of the ear and throat, recalls our aquatic past. The circulation of blood through chambers of the heart echoes the designs first tested in fish. Even our inner ears, which help us maintain balance, are built upon systems that first evolved in water to detect motion and orientation, to walk upright, to hear a whisper, to breathe deeply. Each of these acts carries within it the signature of fish, written long ago in the oceans of earth. It is humbling to imagine those ancient seas, filled with creatures experimenting with forms and functions that would one day become part of us. The first jaws biting into prey, the first fins moving with precision, the first skeletons bearing weight. These were quiet revolutions, unnoticed in their time but monumental in their consequences. Without fish, the human body as we know it could not exist. Our very backbone, the defining feature of our anatomy, was their gift. Our ability to manipulate the world with limbs began with their fins. Our capacity for sustained movement was born of their circulatory systems. Even our faces, expressive and unique, owe their origins to the simple jaws of ancient fish. As night deepens and thought drifts softly, it is calming to see ourselves as continuations of this long aquatic story. We are not separate from those creatures but their descendants, carrying forward their experiments in form and function. The body we inhabit is a record of their survival, an echo of fins turned to arms, gills turned to lungs, and backbones turned to spines. To remember the fish is to remember that our own existence is tied to the gentle pulse of ancient oceans, that every heartbeat and every breath connects us to waters that once teemed with the first backboned beings. Their story flows quietly within us still. 6. Amphibians and the move to land. After the first fish established the vertebrate body plan, evolution began to explore new environments. The oceans had been the cradle of life for billions of years, but slowly the shorelines beckoned. The air above the water and the land beyond the tide pools represented both danger and opportunity. For aquatic creatures, leaving the water was no small challenge. It required entirely new ways of breathing and protecting the body. Yet in the long patience of evolution, some fish ventured into shallow waters, where fins could support weight and lungs could supplement gills. Out of these experiments, the first amphibians emerged. They were the pioneers of land vertebrates, bridging the gap between water and land. And in their forms we see the beginnings of many traits that would one day shape the human body. Amphibians appeared more than 350 million years ago, during the Devonian period, sometimes called the Age of Fishes. At this time, lobe-finned fish like Tiktaalik already showed the foundations of limbs. Their fins contained bones arranged in patterns strikingly similar to those in our own arms and legs. Tiktaalik could lift itself in shallow water and perhaps even push onto muddy banks. Over many generations, these proto-limbs grew stronger and more versatile, until they became true legs, capable of supporting weight on solid ground. This shift from fins to legs was one of the most transformative events in vertebrate history. Without it, no reptiles, mammals, or humans could have followed. The transition to land was not only about locomotion. Breathing posed another challenge. Fish rely on gills to extract oxygen from water, but gills collapse in air. Some lobe-finned fish, however, already had primitive lungs, allowing them to gulp air when oxygen levels in the water were low. Amphibians inherited and refined this adaptation. Early amphibians like Acanthostega and Ichthyostega had both gills and lungs, allowing them to survive in water while also breathing air on land. Their dual system made them versatile, able to exploit environments that were inaccessible to strictly aquatic species. For humans, this ancient innovation echoes in our lungs, the moist sacs that fill with air, exchange gases, and power our metabolism. The skeletal system also underwent profound change. In water, the body is buoyed by the surrounding medium, but on land, gravity must be resisted directly. Amphibians developed stronger vertebrae, more robust limb bones, and joints that could bear weight. The pelvis expanded to anchor the hind limbs, while the pectoral girdle freed itself from direct attachment to the skull, allowing the head to move independently. These changes gave amphibians greater mobility and set the foundation for the upright postures that would appear later in evolution. In the human body, the shape of the pelvis, the flexibility of the neck, and the arrangement of joints all descend from these early experiments in terrestrial living. Another significant adaptation was the development of new sensory systems suited for land. In water, sound travels differently, and light refracts in unique ways. On land, eyes, ears, and balance organs had to adjust. Amphibians modified the structure of the skull and jaw to transmit sound vibrations, leading to the earliest versions of middle ear bones. These primitive mechanisms would eventually evolve into the delicate ossicles of the human ear, which allow us to hear a wide range of frequencies. The eyes of amphibians shifted to new positions, adapted to focusing in air rather than water, providing clearer vision above the surface. Even our sense of smell carries echoes of this transition, as amphibians relied on nasal passages to detect airborne scents, a sense that later became central to mammalian behavior. Despite their many innovations, amphibians remained tied to the water. Their eggs lacked protective shells, and so they had to be laid in moist environments, vulnerable to drying out. The young typically hatched as larvae, breathing through gills and living in water before undergoing metamorphosis into air-breathing adults. Frogs, toads, and salamanders, the modern descendants of those ancient pioneers, still follow this pattern. Their dual life, beginning in water and continuing on land, is a living memory of the evolutionary transition from sea to shore. In the rhythms of their life cycle, we see the echoes of our ancestors' first steps on land. The importance of amphibians cannot be overstated. They were the first vertebrates to claim the land as a home, and in doing so they opened new horizons for evolution. The forests of the Carboniferous period provided abundant plants and insects, rich food sources for the first land-dwelling vertebrates. Amphibians grew larger, some reaching lengths of several meters, and they diversified into a variety of forms. Their presence reshaped ecosystems, linking aquatic and terrestrial environments in new ways. Every reptile, bird, and mammal that followed owes its existence to these trailblazers. In the human body, we continue to carry the legacy of amphibians. During embryonic development, humans pass through stages that recall aquatic ancestors. Structures resembling gill slits appear, later transforming into parts of the jaw, throat, and ear. The way our lungs develop, the arrangement of our limb bones, and even aspects of our circulatory system all bear traces of the amphibian stage of our heritage. These echoes remind us that we are not separate from that lineage but deeply connected to it, still carrying its blueprints within us. The story of amphibians is also a story of compromise. They were not fully of the water, nor fully of the land, but balanced between the two. This balance is reflected in their very name, which means both lives. They could breathe air, yet many still needed water to reproduce. They could walk on land, yet they often returned to ponds and streams. This dual existence may seem limited, but it was precisely this flexibility that allowed them to survive and to pave the way for creatures better suited to dry environments. In their quiet persistence, amphibians revealed one of the guiding principles of evolution. Adaptation is not about perfection, but about finding workable solutions. At night, reflecting on this chapter of life's history, one can imagine the first amphibians crawling from shallow waters onto soft banks, their limbs pushing against mud, their lungs filling with air, their eyes adjusting to new light. These creatures did not know they were shaping the destiny of future vertebrates. They sought only survival, moving where food and safety could be found. Yet in their small actions, evolution was at work, laying down the foundations for the eventual rise of reptiles, mammals, and humans. The human body is, in many ways, a testament to that transition. To walk upright, we rely on skeletal structures first strengthened in amphibians. To breathe deeply, we rely on lungs that trace their ancestry to the dual systems of those ancient forms. To hear, we depend on tiny bones that began as simple mechanisms for detecting vibrations in early amphibians. Even our dependence on water, though less visible, remains. We may not lay our eggs in ponds, but our cells, our blood, and the environment of the womb all carry the chemical memory of aquatic beginnings. In this way, every human being is both of the land and of the water, a living continuation of the amphibian story. As we let these thoughts settle gently in the quiet of the evening, it is calming to see ourselves not as isolated beings, but as part of a long continuum. The first steps onto land, taken by creatures half fish and half amphibian, are still carried within us. They remind us that progress comes not in leaps but in gradual adjustments, that survival is often about compromise and resilience. The amphibians, humble and unassuming, were the first to answer the call of land, and in doing so, they unlocked the future of all terrestrial life. Their story flows quietly within our bodies, every breath and every step, carrying the memory of that ancient move from water to land. 7. Reptiles and the evolution of skin. As amphibians established the first foothold on land, they opened the doorway for an even greater transition in vertebrate life. Amphibians had lungs, legs, and the beginnings of adaptations for terrestrial living. Yet they remained tied to the water. Their delicate eggs, vulnerable to drying, needed to be laid in ponds and streams. Their skin, soft and permeable, lost water easily and offered little protection against desiccation. To move farther from the shoreline, evolution had to solve these challenges. The solution came in the form of reptiles, whose innovations in skin, eggs, and body systems allowed them to sever the last ties to water and claim the land as a permanent home. The appearance of reptiles, more than 300 million years ago, marked one of the great turning points in the history of life, and in their evolution we can trace many features that still echo within the human body. The defining characteristic of reptiles was their skin. Unlike the moist, permeable skin of amphibians, reptilian skin developed scales composed of keratin, the same durable protein found in human hair and nails. These scales formed a protective armor against physical injury, and more importantly, against water loss. With this barrier, reptiles could thrive in dry environments where amphibians could not survive. The scales also provided protection against the sun, reducing the risk of desiccation in exposed habitats. In humans, though our skin is not scaled, the keratin proteins that form its outer layer are direct descendants of the same evolutionary solution. Our skin, like that of reptiles, is designed to retain moisture and provide a shield against the external world, a living echo of an ancient adaptation. Another crucial development was the amniotic egg. Amphibian eggs were soft, jelly-like. Reptiles evolved eggs enclosed in protective shells, within which multiple membranes created a self-contained environment. These membranes provided nutrition, waste removal, and most importantly, a reservoir of fluid that cushioned and supported the embryo. This innovation meant that reptiles no longer needed to return to water for reproduction. They could lay their eggs on land, in sand, soil, or hidden beneath vegetation. This independence allowed reptiles to colonize deserts, forests, and grasslands, spreading into regions far from rivers and ponds. In humans, the amniotic sac within the womb is a direct inheritance of this innovation, a fluid-filled environment that sustains the developing fetus. Each human birth is therefore a continuation of the same adaptation that once allowed reptiles to conquer dry land. The skeletal and muscular systems of reptiles also revealed advancements. Their limbs were stronger and more efficient than those of amphibians, allowing them to walk with greater speed and endurance. The backbone became more robust, supporting larger bodies and more dynamic movement. Some reptiles developed sprawling postures, while others began to bring their legs more directly under their bodies, a trend that would culminate in the upright stance of mammals and humans. The refinement of joints and muscles in reptiles laid the groundwork for later terrestrial locomotion, including the flexibility and strength that humans now rely on to walk upright. Reptiles also transformed their respiratory and circulatory systems. Amphibians relied partly on their skin for breathing, a method unsuitable for drier environments. Reptiles evolved lungs with greater surface area, capable of exchanging gases more efficiently. Their hearts became more advanced as well, with partial separation of oxygenated and deoxygenated blood, a step toward the fully divided four-chambered heart of mammals and birds. These improvements supported higher activity levels and allowed reptiles to expand into diverse ecological roles. In humans, the efficiency of the lungs and the complexity of the circulatory system are refinements of these ancient designs, still carrying forward the solutions first tested in reptilian ancestors. Reptilian sensory systems continued to adapt to life on land. Vision became more acute, with eyelids and protective membranes shielding the eyes from dust and dryness. Some reptiles evolved color vision, an ability still present in many modern lizards and birds. Hearing improved through modifications of the skull and inner ear bones, though most reptiles relied heavily on vision and smell. The olfactory systems of reptiles were highly developed, allowing them to track prey or sense predators across dry landscapes. These sensory refinements foreshadowed the complexity of mammalian senses and left their mark on the human body. Our eyes, ears, and sense of smell are distant continuations of experiments in perception that reptiles pioneered on land. The diversification of reptiles was profound. From small, lizard-like forms, they radiated into numerous lineages, some remaining modest in size, while others became enormous and formidable. Crocodile-like species lurked in swamps, swift hunters roamed open plains, and armored reptiles moved slowly across ancient landscapes. Over time, reptiles gave rise to the great lineage of dinosaurs, which would dominate the Earth for more than 100 million years. Other branches led to turtles, crocodilians, lizards, snakes, and eventually to birds and mammals. Each of these groups carried forward the same fundamental reptilian blueprint: protective skin, amniotic reproduction, efficient lungs, and sturdy limbs. For humans, the reptilian legacy is not only anatomical but also developmental. During embryogenesis, many features of the reptilian body plan reappear briefly before transforming into more complex structures. The amniotic sac, as mentioned earlier, surrounds the developing fetus, mirroring the self-contained environment of the reptilian egg. The arrangement of early limb buds reflects the same patterns seen in reptilian embryos. Even the structure of our jaws and teeth has roots in reptilian ancestry, as early reptiles were the first to develop strong, mineralized teeth anchored in sockets, a design still evident in the human mouth. The skin of reptiles, though different in form from ours, also left a lasting influence. Humans do not have scales in the reptilian sense, yet our skin still relies on keratin, the same protein that gave reptiles their protective armor. Our fingernails and toenails are keratin structures, as are our hair and outer skin layers. In this way, the human body retains a quiet memory of reptilian skin, transformed into new expressions but grounded in the same evolutionary principle: protection and preservation. in a terrestrial world. The story of reptiles is also the story of freedom. By solving the problem of water loss, they became the first vertebrates to live truly independent of aquatic environments. They could inhabit deserts, mountains, and forests far from rivers and lakes. This independence allowed them to diversify into an astonishing variety of forms, reshaping ecosystems and paving the way for new evolutionary experiments. Without reptiles, the land would never have been fully open to vertebrate life, and the eventual rise of mammals and humans would not have been possible. At night, when the mind drifts into calm reflection, one can imagine the ancient landscapes where reptiles first thrived. Their scales gleamed in the sun, their bodies moved with strength across dry ground, their eggs lay hidden in the soil. Each adaptation was quiet, patient, and practical, yet together they transformed the possibilities of life on Earth. The human body, with its lungs, its resilient skin, its protective womb, and its upright skeleton, is a continuation of this story. We are, in a sense, refined reptiles, carrying forward the same ancient solutions in new and complex forms. As the story unfolds, reptiles remind us that evolution is a process of persistence, of small adjustments that gradually lead to great transformations. They were not perfect beings, nor are we, but they found ways to survive and thrive in their environments. Their story lives within us still, in the cells of our skin, in the air filling our lungs, and in the bones that carry us forward. To rest with this knowledge is to feel the continuity of life, the steady rhythm of adaptation, and the deep connection between our bodies and the scaled creatures that once roamed an ancient Earth. 8. Mammals, warm-blooded and adaptable. As reptiles spread across ancient landscapes, mastering the challenges of dry environments with their protective skin and amniotic eggs, another chapter of life's story began to unfold. Among the countless reptilian lineages, one group slowly diverged, carrying with it a set of subtle but transformative traits. These creatures were small at first, often overlooked in a world dominated by towering reptiles and, later, dinosaurs. Yet, within their bodies, quiet revolutions were underway. They were the ancestors of mammals, and in their gradual rise we see the origins of many of the most distinctive features of the human body: warm-bloodedness, hair, milk, and complex behaviors. Their journey is one of resilience and adaptation, revealing how survival sometimes depends not on size or strength, but on flexibility and care. The most defining trait of mammals is their ability to regulate body temperature internally, a condition known as endothermy. Unlike reptiles, whose body heat depends heavily on the warmth of the sun or the coolness of shade, mammals produce heat through their own metabolism. This capacity allows for greater independence from environmental fluctuations. It also enables activity during cooler nights or in colder climates. For the early mammals, living in the shadows of dominant reptiles, this was a crucial advantage. They could forage under cover of darkness, seeking food while larger reptiles slept. In the human body, this same gift persists. Our warm-blooded nature allows us to survive in diverse environments, from icy tundras to hot deserts, adjusting only with clothing and shelter. The steady warmth of our bodies is a direct inheritance from those ancient, small creatures that first mastered the art of internal regulation. To maintain this warmth, mammals evolved insulation in the form of hair or fur. Each strand of hair is made of keratin, the same protein that formed the scales of reptiles, yet arranged in a new way. Fur traps air close to the body, reducing heat loss and creating a buffer against the cold. Over time, this feature diversified into countless forms: thick coats in animals of the Arctic, sparse coverings in species of hot climates, a reduction of body hair paired with an increase in sweat glands for cooling. Though we often think of hair as cosmetic or ornamental, its roots lie in the basic struggle to retain warmth. Even the fine hairs on our arms, which rise when we are cold or frightened, are remnants of this ancient adaptation. Another defining feature of mammals is the production of milk. Specialized glands evolved to provide nourishment for the young, ensuring survival in a way that did not depend solely on immediate environmental resources. This innovation strengthened the bond between parent and offspring, allowing for extended care and development. In humans, the nurturing of infants with milk is not only a biological necessity but also a deeply symbolic act of connection. It reflects a principle that began with the earliest mammals: survival through parental investment. By feeding and protecting their young, mammals increased the chances that their traits would be passed on. And in this quiet act of care, they secured their place in the unfolding story of life. The skeletons of early mammals also reveal important shifts. Their jaws, once composed of multiple bones as in reptiles, became simplified, with most of the smaller bones moving into the middle ear. This transformation gave mammals a more powerful bite and, at the same time, created the three tiny ossicles, the malleus, incus, and stapes, that make mammalian hearing uniquely sensitive. In humans, these bones vibrate with the faintest sound, translating air pressure into the perception of music, speech, and whispers. Every word we hear is possible because small reptilian jawbones were repurposed into delicate instruments of hearing. This dual transformation, stronger jaws for eating and refined ears for listening, was a hallmark of early mammalian evolution. Teeth also became specialized in mammals. Reptiles typically had uniform teeth, but mammals developed incisors for cutting, canines for piercing, and molars for grinding. This diversity of tooth shapes allowed for a wide range of diets, from carnivory to herbivory to omnivory. For humans, whose teeth reflect a generalist pattern, this adaptation gave us flexibility in diet, a key factor in our global spread. The very shape of our smiles, the way we chew food, and the mechanics of speech all owe their existence to the refinement of mammalian dentition. Another quiet but profound change in mammals was the expansion of the brain, especially the neocortex. This region, associated with sensory perception, learning, memory, and social behaviors, became more prominent in mammals than in any other group before them. For small nocturnal mammals, heightened senses of smell and hearing were crucial, and the brain regions supporting these senses expanded. Over time, as mammals diversified, the neocortex grew more complex, setting the stage for intelligence, problem-solving, and, in humans, the capacity for abstract thought. The human brain, with its remarkable abilities, is a culmination of this long trend. It is not an abrupt gift, but the result of millions of years of gradual enlargement and refinement. Behavior, too, began to shift in mammals. Warm-bloodedness and parental care encouraged more active lifestyles and complex social interactions. Many early mammals lived in groups, supporting one another in raising young or protecting against predators. Communication became increasingly important, with vocalizations, scents, and gestures playing roles in survival. These social tendencies foreshadow the intricate networks of human society, where cooperation and communication are essential to our way of life. Even our need for companionship and connection can be traced to these roots, where survival was enhanced by being part of a group rather than living in isolation. Mammals also displayed extraordinary adaptability. Some took to the skies as bats, developing wings from elongated fingers. Others returned to the sea, becoming whales and dolphins, whose bodies reveal the remarkable plasticity of the mammalian form. Still others specialized for digging, climbing, or running. In every case, the same fundamental blueprint: a warm-blooded body with hair, milk production, specialized teeth, and complex brains, was reshaped to meet the needs of different environments. Humans are part of this pattern. Another variation on the mammalian theme. Our upright posture, our dexterous hands, and our advanced brains are all expressions of this same flexibility, adapted to our unique way of life. The rise of mammals was not immediate. For much of history, they remained small and unobtrusive, overshadowed by the great reptiles of the Mesozoic era. Yet, when the age of dinosaurs came to an end, mammals were ready to expand into the empty niches. Their adaptability allowed them to flourish. And from this flowering, the lineages that would eventually lead to humans began to take shape. The endurance of mammals across this vast span of time reminds us that survival often depends not on dominance but on quiet persistence and readiness for change. In the human body, the mammalian heritage is everywhere. Our hair, our constant body warmth, our specialized teeth, our sensitive hearing, and our nurturing of infants are all direct continuations of the traits first refined by small, nocturnal ancestors. Our brains, enlarged and intricate, are the ultimate expression of a trend that began in those early forms. Even our emotional lives, our tendency to bond, to nurture, to communicate, are echoes of the behaviors that ensured the survival of ancient mammals in a world of larger predators. As we reflect on this history, it becomes soothing to realize how much of who we are is rooted in these ancient adaptations. The warmth we feel in our skin, the sounds we hear, the connections we make with others, all arise from quiet evolutionary changes that accumulated over millions of years. To sleep with this thought is to rest in the continuity of life, to know that we are part of a lineage defined not only by survival, but also by care, connection, and adaptability. The mammals, once small and fragile, became the architects of possibility, and in their enduring legacy, the human body was shaped. 9. Primates and the tree dwellers. As mammals continued to diversify across the earth, some of their lineages adapted to running across open plains, others to digging into the soil, and still others to returning to the sea. Yet one particular branch found its home high above the ground, among the branches of trees. These were the primates, a group whose story is deeply entwined with our own. In the quiet shelter of ancient forests, they developed traits that would eventually lead to the human form. To understand the human body, we must understand the primates, for within their eyes, hands, and social lives we see the roots of what we are today. Primates first appeared more than 60 million years ago, in a world that had been reshaped by the extinction of the great reptiles. With the dinosaurs gone, mammals had begun to explore new ecological opportunities, and forests offered an especially rich and varied environment. Life in the trees required balance, flexibility, and acute senses. To survive, primates evolved bodies perfectly suited for this setting. Their story is one of grasping, climbing, leaping, and seeing a story that quietly prepared the way for walking upright, making tools, and one day writing down their own history. The hands of primates were among their most important adaptations. Unlike many other mammals, primates developed grasping hands with opposable thumbs. This allowed them to cling to branches, pluck fruits, and manipulate their environment with precision. Their fingers were long and flexible, with nails instead of claws, providing a sensitive surface for touch. Over time, this fine motor control became one of the hallmarks of the group. In humans, the dexterity of our hands remains one of our defining traits. Every gesture, every tool we fashion, every word we write traces its ancestry back to those early primates, learning to hold onto branches in the canopy, Vision also became a central feature of primate life. In dense forests, where light is filtered through leaves and predators can move silently, keen eyesight offered a powerful advantage. Primates evolved forward-facing eyes, providing overlapping fields of vision and thus depth perception. This binocular vision allowed them to judge distances accurately, a skill essential for leaping from branch to branch. Color vision also developed, enabling primates to distinguish ripe fruits and tender leaves from less nutritious fare. In humans, our reliance on sight, our ability to read, to navigate, to create art, carries forward this legacy. The eyes that now look upon books, screens, or landscapes were shaped long ago by the need to survive among trees. The brains of primates also grew more complex. The demands of tree-dwelling life, coordinating movement, recognizing patterns, and navigating three-dimensional spaces required advanced processing. In addition, primates became increasingly social, and living in groups placed further demands on the brain. Recognizing companions, remembering relationships, and responding to subtle signals all encouraged the expansion of memory and intelligence. For humans, whose brains represent the culmination of this trend, the social and spatial challenges of early primates were the foundation for language, culture, and abstract thought. The brain that now contemplates its own origins first grew large in the service of climbing trees and living in communities. The faces of primates, too, reflect this history. With the reliance on vision came a reduction in the sense of smell. The snouts of primates became shorter, and their faces flattened, bringing the eyes to the front. This change also created room for expressive facial muscles, allowing primates to communicate emotions through subtle movements. Raised eyebrows, bared teeth, or soft gazes all became part of social signaling. In humans, this expressiveness has grown into a remarkable tool for communication, complementing spoken language and deepening the bonds between individuals. The human face, capable of 1,000 expressions, is a continuation of the primate face, where emotions were first shared, silently, across the canopy. Primates also developed strong bonds with their young. Like other mammals, they nursed their offspring, but their investment went beyond feeding. Because primates often gave birth to single young, and because survival required learning complex behaviors, parental care extended over long periods. Mothers, and often other group members, carried, protected, and taught the young. This extended childhood became a defining feature of primates, allowing for the slow acquisition of skills and knowledge. Humans have taken this pattern to an extreme, with childhood lasting many years, but the roots of this prolonged dependency lie in the forests, where primates first nurtured their young. The variety of primates grew across time, splitting into many branches. Some remained small and nocturnal, such as lemurs and tarsiers, while others became larger and more diurnal, like monkeys and apes. Old World monkeys adapted to the forests and savannas of Africa and Asia, developing tails but maintaining strong climbing abilities. New World monkeys in South America evolved prehensile tails, adding a fifth limb for grasping. Apes, however, went a step further, enlarging their brains and developing greater social complexity. From the apes would come the lineage that led directly to humans, carrying forward the primate traits of vision, grasping hands, social living, and intelligence. Even in their differences, all primates share a recognizable body plan. Flexible shoulders allow for swinging and climbing. Nails instead of claws offer precision in movement. Forward-facing eyes provide depth and focus. These features, simple yet profound, form the basis of our own anatomy. When we reach for an object, when we calculate distance with our eyes, when we smile at a companion, We are engaging in acts shaped by millions of years of primate evolution. The tree-dwelling life of our ancestors prepared us for the ground, for tools, for culture, and for thought itself. The social lives of primates are particularly relevant to humans. Living in groups required cooperation, but also created competition. Dominance hierarchies emerged, but so did alliances and friendships. Grooming became a central behavior, reinforcing bonds and easing tensions. In humans, these tendencies appear in our own forms of social bonding, sharing meals, exchanging words, and offering comfort. The need to belong, to be part of a group, is not a modern invention but a continuation of ancient primate life. Even our tendency to tell stories or to live within shared traditions may be seen as extensions of the primate need for connection. As we look at modern primates, from playful monkeys to thoughtful apes, we can see reflections of ourselves. The chimpanzee's dexterous fingers, the orangutan's expressive eyes, the gibbon's graceful movements all remind us of the shared heritage we carry. Humans are not separate from this family, but one branch among many. Unique yet deeply connected, the body we inhabit today is the result of countless generations of primates, testing and refining the same features, adjusting them for survival in varied environments. At night, when one reflects on this history, it is calming to see the continuity between our lives and those of the tree dwellers who came before us. Our upright posture, our intelligence, our societies all were built upon foundations laid in the canopy. The forests of the past, filled with the calls of primates leaping from branch to branch, still echo in our bodies. We are the heirs of their eyes, their hands, their brains, and their bonds. To rest with this knowledge is to remember that our humanity is not a sudden creation, but a quiet unfolding of primate traits, carried forward into new forms. 10. Walking upright. The evolution of bipedalism. The story of the human body takes a dramatic turn when one particular primate lineage descended from the trees and began to move across the ground in a new way. For millions of years, our ancestors had lived among the branches, relying on grasping hands and powerful arms to climb, swing, and leap. But as environments shifted and forests gave way to open grasslands, survival required new strategies. It was in this changing world that a quiet revolution took place. Some primates began to walk upright on two legs. This change, known as bipedalism, is one of the defining characteristics of humans. It shaped our skeleton, altered our muscles, influenced our balance, and even reshaped our brains. To understand the human body is to understand how and why we became walkers of the open land. The earliest evidence of bipedalism appears in fossils more than 4 million years old. One of the most famous examples is Australopithecus afarensis, best known from the fossil skeleton nicknamed Lucy. This small-bodied hominin walked upright, as revealed by the structure of her pelvis, femur, and spine. She still retained long arms and curved fingers, suggesting that climbing remained part of her life, but her body already showed the unmistakable adaptations of a biped. These adaptations were not superficial. They required profound changes to the skeleton and musculature, changes that every human still carries within them. The pelvis was one of the most critical transformations. In quadrupeds, the pelvis is long and narrow, designed for a horizontal body. In bipeds, the pelvis shortened and broadened, creating a stable platform to support internal organs while standing upright. The muscles that attach to the pelvis, particularly those that stabilize the hip, became reoriented to keep the body balanced on one leg at a time. This was essential, for in walking, there is always a moment when only one foot is on the ground. Without strong stabilizing muscles, the body would collapse sideways. Every step we take today is possible because our ancestors reshaped their pelvises to handle the demands of upright movement. The spine also adapted. In quadrupeds, the backbone is relatively straight, but in bipeds, it developed distinct curves. The human spine forms in shape, with a gentle inward curve in the lower back and another at the neck. These curves act like springs, absorbing shock and aligning the head and torso above the hips. They also help distribute weight evenly when standing or walking. Though the spine is sometimes a source of discomfort in modern humans, its curved design is a remarkable solution to the challenge of balancing an upright body. The legs grew longer relative to the arms, reflecting the shift from climbing to walking. Longer legs increase stride length, making bipedal locomotion more efficient. The femur, or thigh bone, angled inward from the hip to the knee, bringing the knees closer to the body's midline. This valgus angle ensured that the feet landed directly under the center of gravity, reducing the side-to-side wobble that would otherwise accompany walking. The knees themselves developed locking mechanisms, allowing humans to stand upright for long periods without constant muscular effort. These adjustments gave humans endurance, enabling them to walk long distances across open landscapes, a trait that would later prove vital in hunting, gathering, and migration. The feet, too, underwent dramatic change. In primates adapted for climbing, the big toe is separated, functioning almost like a thumb for grasping branches. In humans, the big toe aligned with the other toes, forming a strong platform for pushing off the ground. The foot's arches developed to absorb shock and store energy, turning each step into a spring-loaded motion. The transformation of the foot was as critical as that of the pelvis or spine, for it provided both stability and efficiency in bipedal locomotion. When we walk or run today, the rolling motion from heel to toe reflects this ancient adaptation. Walking upright also affected the skull. In quadrupeds, the head projects forward, with the spinal cord entering at the back of the skull. In bipeds, the foramen magnum, the opening where the spinal cord passes, shifted to the base of the skull, allowing the head to balance directly above the spine. This change freed the hands from supporting the head's weight and allowed for greater mobility of the neck. When we hold our heads high, facing the world ahead, we are benefiting from this subtle but profound reorientation. The advantages of bipedalism were many. Standing upright offered a better field of vision, allowing early humans to scan the horizon for predators or food. Walking on two legs freed the hands, which could now carry objects, gather food, or eventually make tools. Bipedalism also proved energy efficient for long-distance travel, enabling humans to migrate, hunt, and explore far beyond the range of other primates. In environments where survival required flexibility and endurance, upright walking provided the edge. Yet bipedalism also came with costs. The human spine, though elegantly curved, is prone to strain and injury. The narrow birth canal, a result of the reshaped pelvis, made childbirth more difficult compared to other primates. The knees and feet, bearing the full weight of the body, became vulnerable to wear and injury. Evolution does not create perfection, it creates workable solutions. Bipedalism was such a solution, imperfect, yet effective enough to endure. The fact that we can stand, walk, and run today is testament to its success. The impact of bipedalism extended beyond anatomy. By freeing the hands, it opened the door to tool use, which in turn influenced brain development and culture. Carrying food, crafting objects, and sharing resources all became possible in new ways. Upright posture may also have played a role in social communication, as standing face-to-face allowed for greater eye contact and the display of expressions. Over time, these subtle shifts in movement and interaction helped shape the uniquely human blend of physical and cultural traits. Even in our daily lives, the legacy of bipedalism is ever present. When we rise from bed in the morning, when we walk across a room, when we stand in conversation, we are reenacting the adaptations of our ancestors. Each step contains within it the memory of the first tentative strides taken on the plains of Africa. Each upright posture recalls the ancient decision, written in bone and muscle, to face the world on 2 legs rather than 4. To reflect on this history is to see the human body not as a sudden invention, but as a patient refinement, from pelvis to spine, from femur to foot, from skull to stride. Every part of our form has been shaped by the demands of bipedalism. This way of moving is so familiar to us now that we hardly notice its complexity. Yet it represents one of the most profound transformations in the story of life. As the night deepens and the mind drifts into stillness, it is calming to imagine those early humans, standing tall on the grasslands, looking out across wide horizons. They may not have known the significance of their upright gait, yet every step they took carried forward the future of our species. The human body, in all its balance and fragility, is the quiet masterpiece of this long evolution. Walking upright is not just a way of moving. It is the essence of what it means to be human, a trait that defines us and connects us to the long journey of our ancestors. 11. The expanding brain. Among all the changes that shape the human body, few are as profound or as defining as the growth of the brain. While bipedalism altered our skeleton and freed our hands, it was the expansion of the brain that allowed those hands to become instruments of thought, creativity, and culture. The human brain is remarkable not only in its size but in its complexity, housing billions of neurons and trillions of connections that generate language, memory, imagination, and self-awareness. Yet this extraordinary organ did not appear suddenly. Like every other feature of our body, it was shaped slowly, across countless generations, beginning with the modest brains of early mammals and continuing through the social lives of primates. To understand the human brain is to trace the long path from simple sensory awareness to the vast inner landscapes of thought that define us today. Early mammals already showed an increase in brain size relative to body weight compared to reptiles. Their nocturnal habits required keen senses of smell and hearing, and so the regions of the brain devoted to these senses expanded. The neocortex, a thin sheet of tissue that wraps around the brain, became larger, adding layers of processing and flexibility. This early investment in brain power set mammals apart, enabling them to adapt to diverse environments and complex behaviors. In humans, the neocortex has grown enormously, taking up most of the brain's volume. It is within this structure that our highest functions, language, reasoning, planning, and imagination reside. As primates evolved, further changes unfolded. Life in the trees required coordination, memory, and judgment. To leap from branch to branch, an animal had to calculate distances and recall safe pathways. To live in groups, it had to recognize individuals and navigate social relationships. These demands encouraged greater intelligence, and so the primate brain grew. Visual processing became dominant, reflecting the importance of sight in arboreal life. The frontal lobes expanded, supporting decision-making and problem-solving. These trends laid the groundwork for the even larger brains of hominins. In the lineage leading to humans, brain expansion accelerated dramatically. Early hominins, such as Australopithecus, had brains only slightly larger than those of modern chimpanzees. Yet with the appearance of Homo habilis around 2 million years ago, brain size began to increase more rapidly. By the time of Homo erectus, the brain was nearly twice that of earlier ancestors. With Homo sapiens, it reached an average of about 1/300 to 1/400 cubic centimeters, 3 times larger than the brains of our closest primate relatives. This growth did not simply add more tissue, it restructured the brain's organization, enhancing communication between regions and deepening the capacity for symbolic thought. The reasons for this expansion are complex and interwoven. One factor was tool use. As our ancestors began to shape stones into cutting edges and pounding tools, they engaged in activities that demanded planning, memory, and coordination. The act of imagining a tool before creating it is a form of abstract thinking, a leap from the immediate to the conceptual. Each generation that improved upon these skills placed new demands on the brain, encouraging further growth. Another factor was diet. The shift toward eating meat and cooking food provided more energy-dense nourishment, supporting the metabolic costs of a larger brain. Brains consume enormous amounts of energy, and without richer diets, such expansion would not have been sustainable. Social life also played a crucial role. Humans are deeply social beings, and even in early communities, cooperation, competition, and communication shaped survival. To live in groups required the ability to remember relationships, interpret intentions, and respond to subtle signals. This social brain hypothesis suggests that the complexity of human society drove the complexity of the brain itself. The need to negotiate alliances, care for offspring, and share knowledge created pressures for intelligence beyond simple survival skills. In essence, the brain became an organ not just of thought but of connection, enabling humans to form bonds and cultures unlike any seen before. Language represents one of the crowning achievements of this expanding brain. Though the exact timeline of its emergence remains debated, the neural capacity for language clearly distinguishes humans from other species. The areas of the brain that control speech and comprehension, Broca's and Wernicke's regions, are highly developed, and the connections between them allow for the rapid exchange of sounds and meanings. Language transformed human life, allowing knowledge to be transmitted not only from parent to child, but across entire communities and generations. Through language, humans could coordinate hunts, share stories, and eventually pass down traditions, myths, and scientific discoveries. Every word spoken today is possible because of the long history of brain expansion and reorganization in our ancestors. Memory, too, expanded in scope. While many animals remember locations, individuals, or simple sequences, humans developed the ability to recall past events and imagine future possibilities. This capacity for mental time travel allowed us to learn from mistakes, plan ahead, and create tools or strategies not yet needed. It also fostered imagination, the ability to envision what does not yet exist. From cave paintings to space travel, the human story has been one of turning imagined possibilities into reality, a gift made possible by the expanding brain. The emotional life of humans is also rooted in this development. The limbic system, present in all mammals, processes feelings such as fear, pleasure, and attachment. In humans, the interplay between this system and the expanded neocortex allows for complex emotions: love, guilt, pride. These emotions bind us to one another, motivate our actions, and give depth to our experiences. They remind us that intelligence is not only about calculation, but also about connection and meaning. The costs of brain expansion should also be noted. Larger brains required longer developmental periods, and human infants are born unusually helpless compared to other animals. This vulnerability necessitated extended parental care, which in turn reinforced social bonds. Childhood became a time not only of growth but of learning, allowing young humans to absorb language, culture, and skills. In modern humans, this prolonged development remains, with education and socialization stretching far into adolescence. It is a reminder that our intelligence is not just a matter of biology but of the environments in which we grow. Every feature of the human brain, from its size to its structure, reflects this long history. The folds and grooves that increase its surface area, the vast networks of connections that transmit signals, the balance between emotion and reason, all are products of evolutionary refinement. The brain is not perfect, and it is vulnerable to fatigue, stress, and illness. Yet its abilities are extraordinary, allowing humans to create music, explore the cosmos, and ponder their own origins. When we reflect on the story of the expanding brain, we are in fact using the very organ that evolved through that story. A quiet circle of continuity. As night settles and the body relaxes, it is calming to imagine the gradual unfolding of this process. Small-brained primates calculating leaps among branches, early hominins shaping simple tools, communities gathering around fires to share stories all contributed to the expansion of the human brain. Our thoughts, our dreams, our very awareness are the culmination of this journey. To rest in this knowledge is to feel the depth of our connection to the past, to know that every idea we hold is part of a lineage stretching back through countless generations. The human brain, vast and intricate, is the quiet masterpiece of evolution, a living reminder of the power of time, adaptation, and connection. 12. The changing face and jaw. As the human story unfolded, the brain was not the only part of the body undergoing transformation. The very structure of the face and jaw began to shift in response to changes in diet, communication, and social life. These modifications may appear subtle compared to the sweeping adaptations of upright walking or brain expansion, yet they hold deep significance. Our face is the part of the body most often seen by others. It is the canvas of expression, the instrument of speech, and the gateway to nourishment. The changing face and jaw tell a story not only of survival but of connection, shaping the way humans relate to one another and to the world. In the earliest primates, faces were dominated by long snouts. Smell was a primary sense, and the nasal passages occupied much of the skull. With the rise of tree-dwelling life and the growing importance of vision, the snout shortened and the eyes moved to the front, providing binocular vision. This trend continued in hominins, as the reliance on smell diminished further and sight became central. In modern humans, the face is relatively flat compared to that of other primates, bringing the eyes forward and creating a broad, open appearance. This change reflects a deeper shift in sensory priorities. The human world is a world of sight, expressions, and shared gazes. The jaw underwent equally profound changes. Early hominins had large jaws and teeth, suited to grinding tough plant material. Their faces projected outward, with prominent brow ridges and powerful chewing muscles. Over time, as diets changed to include more meat and eventually cooked foods, the demands on the jaw lessened. Fire, discovered perhaps 1,000,000 years ago, softened food and made it easier to chew and digest. This reduced the need for massive jaws and teeth, and so the face began to retract. The bones of the skull became more delicate, the brow ridges diminished, and the chin appeared a feature unique to humans. These changes gave the human face its characteristic shape, distinct from that of apes or early hominins. Teeth tell a particularly clear story of this transformation. Our ancestors once had larger molars, adapted for grinding fibrous vegetation. As diets diversified and cooking altered food, molars shrank and tooth enamel thinned. The dental arch became shorter, and the third molars, or wisdom teeth, often became crowded. In many modern humans, wisdom teeth must be removed because the jaw has become too small to accommodate them. This is a reminder that evolution works with what is available, sometimes leaving behind traces of features that no longer fit neatly into the current design. Every wisdom tooth is a quiet echo of a time when larger jaws were necessary for survival. The muscles of the jaw also diminished. In apes, the chewing muscles are large and powerful, shaping the skull with heavy ridges for attachment. In humans, these muscles became smaller, partly because of dietary changes, and partly to make room for the expanding brain. The reduction in chewing muscles allowed the skull to grow lighter and more rounded, accommodating the ballooning neocortex. Thus, the changing jaw was not only about diet, but also about making space for the growing mind. Speech placed new demands on the face and jaw. As humans developed the capacity for complex vocal communication, the position of the larynx and the shape of the oral cavity became crucial. The lowered larynx created a resonant chamber for varied sounds, while the flexibility of the tongue allowed precise articulation. The jaw and teeth worked in concert with the lips and tongue to produce speech. These subtle adjustments turned the mouth from a simple tool for eating into an instrument of language. Every word spoken today depends on the alignment of bones and muscles shaped over millions of years. Facial expression also gained importance. With a flatter face and smaller jaws, the muscles around the mouth and eyes became more prominent, capable of subtle movements. Humans can raise eyebrows, purse lips, smile, or frown with extraordinary nuance. These expressions communicate emotions instantly, often more powerfully than words. In social groups, where cooperation and trust were essential, such nonverbal communication provided survival advantages. A glance could warn of danger. A smile could signal alliance. A frown could express disapproval. Over time, the face became not only a biological structure but a social instrument, reflecting inner states and shaping relationships. The appearance of the chin is especially intriguing. Unique to humans, the chin has puzzled scientists for decades. No other primate possesses such a protrusion. Some theories suggest it is a byproduct of jaw reduction. Others that it strengthens the lower face against the stresses of speech and chewing. Whatever its origins, the chin stands as a marker of human distinctiveness, a small but visible symbol of our evolutionary journey. Every time we touch our chin in thought, we are tracing the outline of a feature that sets us apart from all other species. The nose also transformed as humans adapted to different climates. In some populations, narrower noses evolved in colder, drier regions, where they helped warm and humidify incoming air. In others, wider noses developed in hot, humid regions, facilitating airflow. These variations reflect the adaptability of the human face, its ability to adjust to diverse environments while retaining the same basic structure. Today, the diversity of human faces across the globe is a living record of this adaptability, each variation shaped by ancient climates and survival needs. The eyes, framed by the face, became central to human identity. With the face flattening and the brow ridges receding, the eyes came forward, making gaze a more powerful tool of communication. Humans are unique among primates in having visible sclera, the white of the eye, which makes it easy to follow the direction of another's gaze. This feature enhances cooperation and social bonding, allowing individuals to share attention and intentions. The human face, therefore, became a stage for the eyes, amplifying their role in communication and trust. When we look at one another today, we see not only the present but also the echoes of the past. The shape of the jaw, the arrangement of the teeth, the prominence of the nose, the subtlety of expressions, all are products of millions of years of evolution. The human face is not random. It is the outcome of countless adjustments to diet, environment, and social life. It is both functional and expressive, both biological and cultural. It feeds us, speaks for us, and reveals us to others. To reflect on the changing face and jaw is to appreciate the delicate balance of form and function in the human body. What once was a tool for grinding roots became an instrument for sharing words. What once projected forward in power and strength became flattened to make space for thought and expression. The face, in its current form, carries the imprint of every meal cooked over a fire, every word spoken, every smile exchanged. As night falls and the mind grows still, it is soothing to imagine the slow transformation of faces across time. From the heavy jaws of early hominins to the expressive faces of modern humans, the journey is one of refinement and adaptation. Each face we see today is a living mosaic of ancient traits and recent changes, a reminder that evolution does not simply shape bodies but also shapes the ways we connect. The human face, with its blend of strength and subtlety, is both a tool for survival and a mirror of the soul, quietly telling the story of who we are and how we came to be. 13. Hands and dexterity. Among all the features that distinguish the human body, none are quite as remarkable as the hands. They are, at once, tools, instruments of expression, and extensions of the mind. With them we shape the world, care for others, create art, and carry out the simplest tasks of daily life. The story of the hand is the story of dexterity, a tale of how bones, muscles, tendons, and nerves were gradually refined into a system of extraordinary precision. To look at our hands is to see millions of years of evolution written in form and function. They are the bridge between thought and action, between imagination and reality. The earliest ancestors of humans already possessed grasping hands. In the canopy of ancient forests, primates developed fingers capable of wrapping around branches, aided by opposable thumbs. This ability to cling securely provided safety while climbing and freedom to forage for fruits and leaves. The thumb, in particular, though shorter than in modern humans, allowed for a degree of control absent in many other mammals. It was this first step toward opposability that would eventually set the stage for human dexterity. Even today, when a baby instinctively grips a parent's finger, the gesture is a faint echo of this ancient adaptation for grasping. As primates diversified, so did their hands. Monkeys and apes refined their grip, developing nails in place of claws, broad fingertips, and sensitive pads filled with nerve endings. These changes enhanced touch, turning the hand into not only a tool for movement but also an organ of perception. With fingertips, primates could explore textures, shapes, and surfaces, gaining detailed knowledge of their environment. In humans, this sensitivity remains astonishing. Our fingertips can detect differences of texture as fine as a few microns, an ability that underlies everything from sewing to sculpting to reading Braille. The human sense of touch is, in essence, the flowering of an evolutionary investment begun in the canopy. The skeleton of the hand reveals the delicate balance between strength and precision. Each hand contains 27 bones, arranged in a pattern that has remained consistent since early primates. The wrist, composed of small carpal bones, provides flexibility and stability. The metacarpals form the palm, a platform for movement. The phalanges create the fingers, long and slender, capable of both forceful grasping and delicate gestures. The opposable thumb, with its unique joint structure, moves across the palm to meet the other fingers, enabling the precision grip. This simple but powerful motion allows humans to hold tools, thread needles, and write words. Without the thumb's range of motion, human culture as we know it would not exist. The muscles and tendons that control the hand add further layers of refinement. Many of the muscles that move the fingers are not located in the hand itself but in the forearm, connected by long tendons. This arrangement keeps the hand relatively small and light while still allowing powerful and precise movements. The intricate interplay of flexors and extensors, guided by nerves running from the spinal cord, makes possible the astonishing variety of human hand motions, from the forceful strike of a hammer to the gentle touch of reassurance. The hand can shift seamlessly between strength and delicacy. As our ancestors left the forests and began to walk upright, the hands were freed from the constant demands of locomotion. No longer needed for climbing with every movement, they could specialize further in manipulation. The ability to carry objects, shape tools, and share resources became increasingly central to survival. Stone tools, first crafted more than 2 million years ago, bear the mark of human hands learning to impose form on raw material. The repeated striking of flint, the controlled shaping of edges, the careful holding of one piece while hitting another, all required coordination of hand and mind. Over generations, these actions encouraged both manual skill and cognitive development. The brain and the hand grew together, each shaping the other in a partnership that continues to define humanity. Dexterity was not only about survival, it was also about communication. Long before spoken language fully developed, gestures carried meaning. A pointed finger indicated direction. An open hand offered reassurance. A clenched fist signaled warning. The hand became an extension of expression, complementing facial cues and vocal sounds. Even in modern humans, gestures remain essential. We wave in greeting, signal in silence, and emphasize speech with movement. Sign languages, fully developed linguistic systems, demonstrate the hand's capacity to convey complex thought without sound. In this way, the hand became not only a tool of labor, but a tool of connection. Art provides another window into the role of the hand. Some of the earliest known human creations are handprints on cave walls, left tens of thousands of years ago. These imprints, made by blowing pigment around outstretched fingers, are silent declarations of presence. They remind us that the hand is not only functional but symbolic, a way of leaving a mark upon the world. Later, hands would carve statues, paint murals, weave fabrics, and compose music. Each of these acts, whether monumental or intimate, depends on the fine control of movement that only the human hand provides. The hand is thus both practical and poetic, capable of building shelters and creating beauty. The nervous system plays a crucial role in this mastery. Large areas of the human brain are devoted to controlling and sensing the hands, a reflection of their importance. In diagrams of the sensory and motor cortex, the hands loom disproportionately large, emphasizing the richness of their representation. This neural investment allows for the coordination of complex sequences, such as typing on a keyboard or playing a musical instrument. Every action of the hand is accompanied by a chorus of neural signals, a seamless dialogue between body and brain. The intimacy of this relationship means that the hand can act almost as quickly as thought itself, a true extension of the mind. The hands also connect humans to one another in profound ways. A handshake, a hug, the act of holding hands, all are expressions of trust, care, and solidarity. Across cultures, hands are used in rituals, greetings, and symbols. They bless, they comfort, they protect. They are both practical instruments and conveyors of meaning. In every culture, hands carry significance that goes beyond biology, rooted in their central role in human experience. The evolution of the hand was not without trade-offs. The refinement of dexterity came at the expense of raw strength compared to other primates. A chimpanzee's grip is far more powerful than a human's, suited for climbing and pulling. Humans, by contrast, exchanged brute force for precision. This trade-off reflects the priorities of our lineage. Rather than relying on strength alone, we relied on skill, ingenuity, and cooperation. The hand became the means by which we shaped our environment rather than simply adapting to it. As we reflect on the story of the hands, it becomes clear that they embody the essence of humanity. They are the means by which we transform thought into action, imagination into creation. They are rooted in ancient adaptations for grasping branches, yet they now hold pens, instruments, and tools of science. They are at once ancient and modern, functional and expressive, simple and profound. In the quiet of night, one can look at the hands resting gently by the body and see within them the long sweep of evolution. From primate forests to human cities, they have carried forward the legacy of dexterity, shaping not only the world but also the very identity of our species. To appreciate the hands is to appreciate the unity of body and mind, the deep continuity of evolution, and the delicate beauty of form and function refined by time. Every movement of the hand is a reminder of where we have come from and of the possibilities still unfolding in the story of the human body. 14. The human skeleton. The skeleton, silent and hidden beneath layers of muscle, skin, and organs, is the quiet framework upon which the entire human body is built. It gives shape to our form, protects the delicate structures within, and provides the rigid levers that make movement possible. Though often thought of as a static structure, the skeleton is a living system, constantly renewing itself, responding to stress, and adapting to the demands placed upon it. Its story stretches back to the earliest vertebrates, when simple rods of cartilage supported soft-bodied animals in ancient seas. Over time, these supports grew stronger, transformed into bone, and diversified into the intricate framework that defines the human body today. To reflect on the skeleton is to trace the history of adaptation, endurance, and quiet strength written into every bone. The human skeleton is composed of 206 bones in adulthood, though at birth there are more than 270, many of which fuse as the body grows. These bones are not lifeless structures. They are dynamic tissues, filled with cells that build, break down, and remodel bone throughout life. Within them lies marrow, the birthplace of blood cells, a reminder that the skeleton is not merely support but also a vital participant in sustaining life. Each bone is shaped by evolution, responding to the needs of locomotion, protection, and balance, and each carries within its form the memory of ancestral adaptations. The skull is perhaps the most immediately recognizable part of the skeleton. It encases the brain, the seat of thought and memory, while also housing the sensory organs of vision, hearing, taste. Its shape reflects the expansion of the human brain, with a rounded cranium that contrasts sharply with the elongated skulls of other primates. The facial bones tell their own story. The flattened profile, the reduced jaw, and the presence of a chin all mark the distinctive path of human evolution. Within the skull, the tiny bones of the middle ear, once part of reptilian jaws, vibrate to carry sound, linking us to an ancient past, even as they enable us to hear the faintest whisper. The spine, or vertebral column, is the central axis of the skeleton, composed of 33 vertebrae in childhood, which later fuse into 26 in adulthood. It supports the body and protects the spinal cord. In humans, the spine is uniquely curved, forming a shape that allows for upright posture. This adaptation to bipedalism distributes weight efficiently, enabling us to stand and walk, yet it is also a source of vulnerability, for the curves place stress on the lower back, leading to the aches and pains so common in modern life. Even in its imperfections, the spine tells the story of transition from quadrupedal ancestors to upright walkers. Every vertebra, every disc, is a chapter in the narrative of balance between strength and flexibility. The rib cage protects the heart and lungs, expanding and contracting with each breath. It is a reminder that the skeleton is not rigid but responsive, moving with the rhythm of life. The sternum, flat and shield-like, anchors the ribs at the front, while the thoracic vertebrae support them from behind. Together, they form a protective cage for the organs most essential to survival. The slight elasticity of cartilage between the ribs allows for the expansion of the chest during inhalation, a delicate balance of protection and mobility. Without this flexibility, breathing would be shallow and limited. The lungs can draw in deep, life-sustaining breaths. The shoulders and arms reveal the heritage of our primate ancestors. The clavicles, or collarbones, brace the shoulders, keeping the arms free to swing widely. The scapulae, or shoulder blades, glide smoothly across the back, allowing a vast range of motion. This mobility reflects our arboreal past, when climbing and reaching were daily necessities. In humans, freed from climbing as a primary mode of movement, the arms became instruments of manipulation, expression, and creation. The humerus, radius, and ulna form a versatile system capable of both strength and precision, from lifting heavy loads to threading a needle. The arms and hands embody the evolutionary partnership between structure and dexterity. The pelvis is another critical structure, reshaped by the demands of bipedalism. Shortened and broadened compared to that of quadrupedal primates, it provides a stable base for upright posture. The pelvis also bears the imprint of reproduction, particularly in females, where it has adapted to allow the passage of infants through the birth canal. This dual demand supporting bipedal locomotion and accommodating childbirth created a delicate balance that defines the human condition. The shape of the pelvis influences not only walking but also the posture of the entire body, linking locomotion with the deep rhythms of life. The legs, long and powerful, are the pillars of bipedal movement. The femur, the longest bone in the body, angles inward from hip to knee, bringing the knees beneath the center of gravity. This alignment allows for efficient walking and running, conserving energy over long distances. The patella, or kneecap, increases the leverage of thigh muscles, enhancing strength. The tibia and fibula support the weight of the body, while the ankle provides stability and flexibility. Together, the bones of the leg form a system uniquely suited to endurance, enabling humans to travel vast distances on foot. The strength of the legs reflects not only the mechanics of bone and muscle, but also the evolutionary story of migration, exploration, and survival. The feet complete the transformation to bipedalism. The heel bone, or calcaneus, provides a sturdy base, while the arches of the foot absorb shock and store energy with each step. The toes, once more spread and grasping in arboreal ancestors, became aligned and shortened, with the big toe forming a strong platform for propulsion. This reconfiguration turned the foot into a spring-loaded mechanism, efficient for walking and running across varied terrain. Every step we take today carries within it the memory of this transformation, a reminder that the skeleton is not static but shaped by movement and need. Though strong, the skeleton is also a record of fragility. Fractures, arthritis, and osteoporosis remind us that bones, though durable, are living tissues subject to wear and age. Yet, even in decline, they tell stories. Archaeologists and anthropologists read the bones of ancient humans to uncover diets, diseases, migrations, and lifestyles. Each skeleton is a historical archive, bearing silent witness to the life it supported. In this way, bones bridge biology and history, connecting individual lives to the broader sweep of humanity. The human skeleton is, above all, a masterpiece of balance. It must be strong enough to support the body, yet light enough to allow movement. It must protect vital organs, yet remain flexible for breathing and motion. It must endure stress and strain, yet constantly renew itself through cellular activity. In its quiet resilience, it reflects the patient work of evolution, shaping a framework capable of both survival and expression. At rest, one may feel the bones beneath the skin, the curve of the skull, the arc of the ribs, the solidity of the legs, and sense the deep history they carry. Every bone is a continuation of a lineage stretching back to the first vertebrates, each refinement a response to life's demands. The skeleton is not simply the structure of the body, it is the record of our journey, a silent companion that has carried humanity across landscapes, through challenges, and into the present. To reflect on the skeleton is to honor the hidden strength that supports us, the living architecture upon which the human story is built. 15. The circulatory and respiratory systems. Beneath the surface of the human body lies a hidden world of movement, rhythm, and breath. Every moment of life is sustained by the quiet labor of two deeply connected systems, the circulatory and the respiratory. Together, they form the foundation of energy, carrying oxygen to the trillions of cells that make up the body, and removing the carbon dioxide that is their natural byproduct. Without these systems, even the most remarkable features of the human form, the brain, the muscles, the senses would fall silent within moments. To reflect on their history is to trace a long evolutionary journey, one that began in the earliest aquatic creatures and gradually refined itself into the intricate network that sustains human life today. The circulatory system has its origins in the simplest forms of life. Single-celled organisms rely on direct diffusion, with nutrients and gases moving across their membranes. But as organisms grew larger, diffusion alone could not sustain them. Early multicellular animals developed fluid-filled cavities and simple vessels to distribute oxygen and nutrients. In primitive worms and small aquatic creatures, these rudimentary systems were sufficient, but as complexity increased, so too did the need for a more efficient means of transport. The development of a true circulatory system, an organized network of vessels powered by a pumping heart, was one of the great milestones in evolution. In fish, we see the first vertebrate circulatory system of recognizable form. Their two-chambered hearts, consisting of one atrium and one ventricle, pump blood in a single circuit, from the heart to the gills, where oxygen is absorbed, and then to the rest of the body. This arrangement is simple and effective for aquatic life, where gills provide constant access to oxygen dissolved in water. But it has limitations. Blood loses much of its pressure after passing through the delicate gill capillaries, leaving less force to drive it through the body. In humans, this design was eventually replaced by a more complex system, yet the basic principles, pumping, vessels, and oxygen exchange, remain rooted in this early pattern. With the move to land, amphibians and reptiles began to reshape the circulatory system. Amphibians developed a three-chambered heart, adding a second atrium. This allowed some separation between oxygenated and deoxygenated blood, though mixing still occurred in the single ventricle. Reptiles refined this system further, some developing partial divisions within the ventricle. These changes improved efficiency, enabling stronger activity and greater independence from aquatic environments. In mammals and birds, the evolution of a fully divided, four-chambered heart represented the pinnacle of this progression. With two atria and two ventricles, oxygen-rich blood and oxygen-poor blood are kept completely separate, allowing for powerful, sustained circulation. It is this heart, beating ceaselessly within every human, that carries forward the legacy of all those earlier forms. The human heart is a muscular organ, roughly the size of a fist, yet it performs work of staggering magnitude. With each beat, it sends blood coursing through more than 60 miles of vessels, reaching every corner of the body. It beats about 100 times each day, tirelessly maintaining the flow of life. Within its chambers, valves open and close in precise sequence, ensuring blood moves in only one direction. The sound of the heartbeat, so familiar and steady, is the sound of evolution's solution to the challenge of distribution. It is both ancient and immediate, a rhythm that links us to all vertebrates who share in this design. The vessels themselves form an intricate network. Arteries carry blood away from the heart, their muscular walls built to withstand high pressure. Veins return blood to the heart. Capillaries, so small that red blood cells pass through in single file, are the sites of exchange, where oxygen and nutrients move into tissues and waste products move out. This branching system reaches every cell in the body, ensuring no part is left unsupported. It is a quiet marvel of organization, a living map drawn in vessels and flows. Interwoven with the circulatory system is the respiratory system, the means by which oxygen enters and carbon dioxide leaves. Its story, too, begins in the sea. The earliest animals relied on diffusion through their skin, a method that sufficed for small forms but not for larger, more active ones. Gills evolved as specialized organs, thin filaments rich in blood vessels that absorbed oxygen from water. Fish perfected this design, pumping water across their gills in a constant flow. When vertebrates moved onto land, however, gills could no longer function, and new solutions emerged. Lungs were the answer, appearing as simple sacs in some fish, and becoming more complex in amphibians and reptiles. In humans, the lungs are intricate sponges of tissue, branching into smaller and smaller tubes until they reach tiny sacs called alveoli. Each alveolus is surrounded by a web of capillaries, where oxygen diffuses into the blood and carbon dioxide diffuses out. The sheer scale of this system is astonishing. The lungs contain about 300 million alveoli, providing a surface area roughly the size of a tennis court. Every breath fills this vast landscape, renewing the blood with oxygen to be carried throughout the body. Breathing itself is driven by the diaphragm, a dome-shaped muscle unique to mammals. When it contracts, the chest cavity expands, drawing air into the lungs. When it relaxes, air is expelled. This simple rhythm, inhale, exhale, sustains life moment by moment. It is so constant that we rarely notice it, yet it reflects one of the most profound evolutionary solutions to survival on land. The diaphragm, combined with the efficiency of alveoli and the power of the four-chambered heart, gives humans the endurance to walk long distances, run across open landscapes, and sustain the high energy demands of the brain. The union of the circulatory and respiratory systems is seamless. The lungs supply oxygen, the heart distributes it, and the blood carries it to every cell. At the same time, carbon dioxide, the waste product of metabolism, is carried back to the lungs and exhaled. This continuous exchange maintains the delicate balance required for life. The fact that this system operates without conscious thought, automatically adjusting to the body's needs, is a quiet testament to the refinement of evolution. When we run, breathing and heart rate quicken. When we sleep, they slow, conserving energy. Always, they adapt, ensuring the flow never ceases. In the human body, these systems are not merely functional but deeply symbolic. The heartbeat is often seen as the rhythm of life itself, while the breath is tied to spirit and presence. Across cultures and traditions, breathing has been a focus of meditation and reflection, a reminder of the simple act that connects body and mind. To breathe deeply is to feel grounded in the present moment, while the heartbeat, steady and constant, is a reminder of continuity. These associations are not accidental. They reflect the intimate role of circulation and respiration in sustaining life and shaping experience. At rest, one can place a hand over the chest and feel the steady pulse of the heart, or take a slow breath and sense the lungs filling with air. These simple sensations carry the weight of deep history, connecting us to fish with their gills, to amphibians with their first lungs, to reptiles with their improved hearts, and to mammals whose diaphragms gave them endurance. The circulatory and respiratory systems are not just ours, they are the shared inheritance of all who came before, written into the body through millions of years of adaptation. As night deepens and thought grows calm, it is soothing to imagine the ceaseless work of these systems within us. The heart, beating steadily, never rests entirely. The lungs, rising and falling, bring in the air with quiet regularity. Together, they sustain the body effortlessly, minute after minute, year after year. To reflect on their story is to recognize that life itself is a rhythm, a balance of flow and breath, rooted in the deep past, yet alive in every moment. The circulatory and respiratory systems are the silent companions of our existence, carrying us gently through the continuity of life. 16. The evolution of reproduction. Reproduction is the quiet thread that weaves the story of life together, linking one generation to the next in an unbroken chain stretching back billions of years. Without it, evolution could not occur, for it is through reproduction that traits are passed forward, altered, and refined. The human body, like that of every other species, is not simply a product of its own lifetime, but a continuation of this ancient process. The evolution of reproduction is a tale of persistence and adaptation, beginning with the simplest forms of life and unfolding into the intricate patterns of human birth, growth, and care. To reflect on this journey is to see ourselves as both individuals and participants in a timeless continuity. The earliest life reproduced in ways simple and direct, single-celled organisms divided by fission, creating identical copies of themselves. This method was efficient, ensuring rapid multiplication in favorable conditions. Yet it allowed little variation, and without variation, adaptation is limited. Over time, more complex strategies emerged. Some organisms exchanged bits of genetic material, introducing novelty into their lineages. This exchange, though modest, laid the foundation for sexual reproduction, one of the most transformative developments in the history of life. Sexual reproduction, first appearing more than 1 billion years ago, brought together genetic material from two parents, creating offspring that were similar yet distinct. This blending of genes introduced variation at every generation, fueling evolution's creative potential. From simple algae to complex animals, sexual reproduction spread because it offered a profound advantage: flexibility in the face of changing environments. In humans, as in all sexually reproducing species, every individual is a unique combination of ancestral traits, shaped by the mixing of maternal and paternal genes. Among early animals, reproduction was still tied to the sea. Eggs and sperm were often released into the water, where fertilization occurred externally. Many offspring were produced, but survival rates were low, as few survived the hazards of the open ocean. Amphibians retained this pattern, laying soft, jelly-like eggs in ponds and streams. Their young emerged as larvae, breathing with gills before undergoing metamorphosis into adults. This life cycle reflected a compromise: reproduction on land, but still dependent on water for the earliest stages. In humans, the traces of this pattern remain in embryonic development, where structures reminiscent of gills appear briefly before transforming into parts of the throat and ear. The great breakthrough came with the evolution of the amniotic egg in reptiles. This innovation enclosed the developing embryo within protective membranes and a fluid-filled sac, surrounded by a shell. Within this self-contained environment, the embryo could grow safely, nourished by yolk, cushioned by fluid, and protected from desiccation. With the amniotic egg, reproduction was no longer bound to water. Vertebrates could inhabit deserts, plains, and forests, far from streams and ponds. Mammals, birds, and reptiles all share this heritage, though it is expressed in different ways. In humans, the womb carries forward this innovation, an internal amniotic sac filled with fluid, where the fetus develops in safety. Every birth is, in essence, the unfolding of a reptilian innovation, transformed for mammalian life. Mammals refined reproduction further by bringing development inside the body. Instead of laying eggs, most mammals evolved to nurture their young internally, with the placenta forming a living connection between mother and offspring. Through this organ, nutrients and oxygen pass to the developing fetus, while wastes are removed. The placenta also provides hormones that sustain pregnancy and guide development. In humans, this system allows for prolonged and complex growth before birth, giving infants a head start in survival. It also deepens the bond between parent and child, as the mother carries the new life within her own body for months. Another defining feature of mammals is the nourishment of young through milk. Specialized glands produce this unique fluid, rich in nutrients and antibodies. Milk provides not only sustenance but also protection, strengthening the immune systems of infants during their most vulnerable stages. In humans, the act of nursing extends beyond biology, becoming a profound expression of care and connection. The long dependency of human infants, who are born relatively helpless compared to other animals, reflects this system of nourishment and protection. Our bodies evolved not just for individual survival but for extended parental care, ensuring that offspring have the time to grow, learn, and adapt to complex social lives. Human reproduction is also shaped by the demands of bipedalism and brain expansion. The reshaping of the pelvis for upright walking narrowed the birth canal, while the enlarging brain increased the size of the infant's head. This combination created one of the great challenges of human evolution: difficult childbirth. To accommodate this, human infants are born at an earlier stage of development compared to other primates, making them more dependent on care. This vulnerability fostered cooperation, as child-rearing became a shared responsibility within communities. Thus, the evolution of reproduction not only shaped bodies but also shaped societies, reinforcing bonds of kinship and cooperation. The differences between male and female bodies also reflect the evolutionary history of reproduction. Male anatomy is specialized for the production and delivery of sperm, small and numerous cells designed to reach and fertilize an egg. Female anatomy is specialized for nurturing, with ovaries producing eggs, the uterus supporting development, and breasts providing nourishment after birth. These complementary roles are not rigid destinies but biological patterns, part of the broader story of sexual reproduction. In humans, cultural and social factors add further layers of meaning, but the biological foundations remain deeply rooted in our evolutionary past. Reproductive strategies across species reveal the diversity of solutions to the challenge of continuation. Some animals produce thousands of offspring with little care, relying on numbers for survival. Others, like humans, produce few but invest heavily in each one. This strategy of quality over quantity reflects the complexity of human life. Long childhoods, prolonged learning, and rich social structures all require that each child has the best chance to thrive. The human reproductive pattern is thus inseparable from our intelligence, culture, and society. The evolution of reproduction also shaped emotions and relationships. Pair bonding, attraction, and attachment are not merely cultural constructs but have biological roots. Hormones such as oxytocin and vasopressin influence feelings of closeness and trust, binding individuals together in ways that support the raising of young. Love, in its many forms, may be seen as both a cultural creation and a biological inheritance, an adaptation that reinforces the care necessary for survival. The human heart and mind are, in part, shaped by the demands of reproduction, ensuring that the continuity of life is sustained not only through biology, but also through connection. When we reflect on reproduction, we see that it is not only a biological process, but a story of endurance. From simple cell division to the complexity of human birth, each step has carried life forward. The human body, with its intricate reproductive systems, is the product of this history, a living vessel of continuity. Every person alive today is the outcome of countless successful acts of reproduction, each one linking past to present. As night deepens and thought drifts softly, it is calming to remember that reproduction is the quiet rhythm behind all existence. It is the reason life continues, the reason evolution unfolds, the reason we are here, to breathe, to think, to dream. All are made possible by the ancient and ongoing story of reproduction. It is not only the passing of genes, but the passing of care, knowledge, and connection. The human body, in all its complexity, is both the product and the vessel of this continuity, a reminder that life does not end with us, but flows gently onward through time. 17. The skin, hair, and sweat. The human body is wrapped in a remarkable covering, a living boundary that protects, regulates, and communicates. This covering is the skin, the largest organ of the body, and one that holds within it the stories of our evolutionary journey. Alongside it are hair and sweat glands, smaller features yet deeply significant, for together they reveal how humans adapted to the challenges of their environments. To look at the skin, hair, and sweat is to see not only a barrier against the outside world, but also a record of adaptation, resilience, and survival written on every surface of the body. The origins of skin can be traced to our earliest vertebrate ancestors. In fish, skin was covered with scales that provided protection and reduced water loss. As vertebrates moved onto land, the need for a stronger barrier became clear. Amphibians retained thin, permeable skin, tying them to moist environments. Reptiles, by contrast, evolved keratinized scales that reduced evaporation, allowing them to thrive in dry habitats. From this reptilian legacy, mammals inherited the keratin protein, reshaping it into hair, nails, and the outer layers of skin. In humans, keratin remains central, forming the protective layer that shields us from physical harm, pathogens, and water loss. Each cell that rises to the surface of the skin and hardens into this shield is part of a lineage stretching back to ancient adaptations for survival on land. The human skin is not a simple covering but a complex organ made of multiple layers. The outermost layer, the epidermis, is composed of cells that gradually move upward, hardening and forming a protective barrier before being shed. Beneath it lies the dermis, rich with blood vessels, nerves, and connective tissue. Deeper still is the hypodermis, where fat provides insulation and cushioning. Together, these layers form a living fabric that is both strong and sensitive. It is waterproof yet breathable, tough yet responsive. Every sensation of touch, warmth, or pain travels through this organ, making it both protector and communicator. One of the most distinctive features of human skin is its variation in color. Across populations, skin tones range from very light to very dark, a diversity shaped by the interplay of sunlight and biology. Melanin, the pigment produced in the skin, provides protection against ultraviolet radiation. In regions with intense sunlight, darker skin evolved as a shield, reducing the risk of DNA damage and preserving essential nutrients such as folate. In regions with lower sunlight, lighter skin allowed more efficient production of vitamin D, crucial for bone health. The range of human skin colors is thus not superficial but functional, each shade a quiet adaptation to the environment. This diversity, often celebrated or misunderstood, is a living testament to the flexibility of human biology. Hair, too, carries deep evolutionary significance. In most mammals, fur provides insulation, camouflage, and sensory input. Early humans inherited this feature, but over time, body hair diminished. The reasons for this reduction are complex, likely involving multiple factors. One important element was thermoregulation. As humans became more active in open savannas, hunting and traveling under the hot sun, the ability to cool efficiently became critical. Thick fur retained heat, while reduced hair allowed for better dissipation. What remained was concentrated in areas where protection or sensory function was most needed: on the scalp, to shield from the sun, in the nostrils and ears to filter air, around the eyes to catch sweat, and in the armpits and groin where scent-based communication played a role. The loss of much of our body hair was balanced by another adaptation: the refinement of sweat glands. Humans are unique among mammals in the abundance and efficiency of these glands, particularly the eccrine sweat glands. Distributed across much of the body, they release a watery fluid that evaporates from the skin, carrying heat away. This system allows humans to regulate body temperature with extraordinary effectiveness. While other animals pant or seek shade, humans can run long distances in the heat, sustained by the quiet power of sweat. This ability may have been crucial for persistence hunting, where early humans could chase prey over long distances until the animals overheated. Today, each bead of sweat on the skin is a reminder of this heritage, a simple drop carrying the weight of survival in ancient savannas. Apocrine sweat glands, concentrated in the armpits and groin, serve different functions. They release thicker secretions that, when broken down by bacteria, produce scents. In many mammals, such secretions play roles in communication, signaling territory, status, or reproductive state. In humans, the role of scent is less pronounced, but traces remain. Body odor, though often masked in modern life, reflects this ancient system of chemical communication. The interplay of sweat, bacteria, and scent is a reminder that the skin is not only a boundary, but also part of a larger dialogue between body and environment. The skin also serves as a canvas of expression. Blushing, paling, or flushing are visible signs of emotion, carried through changes in blood flow beneath the surface. Goosebumps, though vestigial in humans, once raised body hair to trap warmth or to make animals appear larger in moments of fear. Scars, freckles, and wrinkles mark the passage of time, telling stories of growth, injury, and age. Tattoos and adornments, practiced by cultures across the world, turn the skin into a medium of art and identity. In these ways, the skin is not only protective but expressive, reflecting both biology and culture. Touch, conveyed through the skin, is another profound element of its function. Nerve endings in the dermis detect pressure, temperature, vibration, and pain, creating a detailed map of the body's contact with the world. The fingertips, especially, are packed with receptors, allowing for extraordinary sensitivity. This sense of touch connects us to our environment and to one another. A gentle caress, a handshake, the warmth of another's hand. These are as much about communication as they are about sensation. The skin, through touch, becomes a bridge between bodies, linking individuals in ways words cannot fully express. In reflecting on the skin, hair, and sweat, we see that these features are not trivial, but central to human survival and identity. They tell of adaptations to climate, of strategies for cooling and protection, of shifts in diet and sunlight. They speak of communication through scent and expression, of connection through touch, They remind us that the body is not separate from its environment but deeply attuned to it, shaped by sun, wind, heat, and contact. At night, when one feels the coolness of sheets against the skin or the warmth of a blanket, it is easy to forget the long history carried in these sensations. Yet every nerve, every pore, every drop of sweat is part of a story millions of years old. The skin, the hair, and the sweat are quiet companions, sustaining us in ways both subtle and profound. They shield us, cool us, express us, and connect us. They are, in many ways, the meeting point between the inner body and the outer world. To reflect on them is to see the body not as enclosed but as open and responsive, a living boundary where survival and experience meet. 18. The human lifespan. The journey of a human life, from its fragile beginnings to its final moments, is one of the most remarkable expressions of evolution. The human lifespan is unlike that of most other animals. We are born unusually helpless. We grow slowly. We spend years in learning and play, and we live long after reproduction has ceased. These patterns may seem ordinary to us, but in the wider context of life, they are extraordinary. They reflect deep adaptations of the human body and mind, shaped by evolution, not only for survival of the individual, but for the survival of communities, knowledge, and culture. To reflect on the human lifespan is to see the rhythm of growth, maturity, and age as part of the great continuity of life, each stage carrying meaning and purpose in the story of our species. Human infancy is one of the most vulnerable stages in the animal kingdom. Unlike many mammals, whose young can walk within hours or days, human babies are born nearly helpless, unable to feed, move, or protect themselves. This vulnerability is not a weakness but a direct result of evolutionary compromise. The expansion of the human brain and the reshaping of the pelvis for upright walking created a dilemma. Infants with larger heads could not safely pass through the narrowed birth canal if they were too developed at birth. The solution was early delivery. Humans are born at a more premature stage compared to other primates, with much of their brain growth and development occurring after birth. This design made childbirth possible while also allowing the brain to grow to its remarkable size. The cost was dependency, but the benefit was intelligence. Because of this, humans evolved extended parental care. Infants require not only nourishment, but also constant protection, stimulation, and teaching. This long dependency forged strong bonds between parents and children and encouraged cooperation among community members. In many societies, caregiving extends beyond biological parents, involving grandparents, siblings, and others in what anthropologists call cooperative breeding. This collective care ensures the survival of fragile infants while also transmitting culture and knowledge across generations. The helplessness of human infants is thus not an isolated trait but a catalyst for social bonds, empathy, and collaboration. Childhood is another unique feature of the human lifespan. While many animals pass quickly from infancy to maturity, humans experience an extended period of growth, marked by play, exploration, and learning. This prolonged childhood provides time for the brain to develop, for skills to be acquired, and for social roles to be learned. Play itself, often seen as mere amusement, is in fact a crucial practice ground for life, allowing children to experiment with movement, communication, and cooperation in a safe context. The length of human childhood reflects the complexity of human culture, which cannot be mastered in a short time. Every language learned, every tool understood, every social bond formed, all are made possible by this long period of preparation. Adolescence marks the transition from childhood to adulthood, another stage uniquely extended in humans. This period is characterized by rapid physical growth, hormonal changes, and the awakening of reproductive capacity. Yet it is also a time of learning independence, identity, and responsibility. In evolutionary terms, adolescence provides a bridge, allowing young humans to practice adult roles while still supported by their families and communities. The brain continues to develop well into the 20s, especially in areas related to decision-making, impulse control, and long-term planning. This gradual maturation ensures that when independence is reached, it is supported by both physical and cognitive readiness. Adulthood, the stage of full maturity, brings both the power of reproduction and the responsibilities of survival. In many species, the lifespan revolves almost entirely around reproduction. Once the task of producing and raising offspring is complete, life often ends quickly. Humans, however, are different. While reproduction is a central part of adult life, human adults also engage in work, creativity, teaching, and the building of communities. The human body, with its endurance and adaptability, is designed not only for survival but also for the transmission of culture, skills, and traditions. Adulthood is thus not only about biological continuation, but also about the flowering of human society. One of the most striking aspects of the human lifespan is longevity. Humans live far longer than most mammals of comparable size. Even after reproductive years end, individuals often live for decades, a pattern unusual in the natural world. This extended lifespan, particularly the survival of post-reproductive women, is explained by what scientists call the grandmother hypothesis. Elders contribute to the survival of their kin, not through direct reproduction but through knowledge, care, and support. Grandparents help raise children, gather food, and pass down wisdom, increasing the chances of survival for the group as a whole. In this way, longevity itself became an adaptation, ensuring that human societies had continuity across generations. Aging is an inseparable part of the human lifespan. Over time, cells accumulate damage, tissues lose elasticity, and organs gradually decline in efficiency. The skeleton weakens, the skin wrinkles, the senses dim. Yet aging is not merely decline. It is also a stage of life with purpose and meaning. In many cultures, elders are revered as keepers of memory and tradition, their experiences guiding younger generations. The human brain, though slower in some functions with age, retains remarkable capacities for wisdom, reflection, and creativity. Aging reminds us that the value of life is not measured only in strength or reproduction, but also in connection, memory, and meaning. The human lifespan is shaped not only by biology but also by environment and culture. Diet, lifestyle, medicine, and community all influence how long and how well people live. Yet beneath these variations lies a shared evolutionary foundation. The long infancy, the extended childhood, the drawn-out adolescence, the productive adulthood, and the enduring old age. These stages are universal, woven into the fabric of humanity. They reflect the ways our species has balanced the challenges of survival with the opportunities of learning, cooperation, and culture. Even in the quiet rhythm of a single life, one can see the reflection of the species' history. Birth recalls the early compromises of brain and pelvis. Childhood reflects the long path of cultural transmission. Adulthood embodies the work of survival and community. Old age preserves the memory of what came before and offers it to the future. Each stage has its place, its necessity, and its beauty. Together, they form a cycle that has carried humanity across the ages. As night falls and one reflects on the human lifespan, it becomes clear that life is not only about the individual moment but about continuity. We are part of a chain, born from those who came before, shaping those who will come after. Our bodies, with their vulnerabilities and strengths, are designed not for isolation but for connection across time. To think of the lifespan in this way is calming, for it reminds us that aging, growth, and even death are not disruptions but natural rhythms, part of the great unfolding of life. 19. The body and environment. The human body has never existed in isolation. From the earliest ancestors moving through forests and grasslands to modern humans living in vast cities, the body has always been in dialogue with its environment. This dialogue is not only external, with climate, landscape, and food sources shaping survival, but also internal, as the body responds to heat, cold, altitude, and countless other conditions with subtle adjustments. To understand the human body is to see it as part of a larger system, always adapting, always influenced by the world around it. The environment has shaped our evolution, our physiology, and even the rhythms of our daily lives, leaving deep marks on every cell and structure. One of the most obvious connections between body and environment is the regulation of temperature. Humans are warm-blooded, maintaining a steady internal temperature despite external fluctuations. Yet this constancy requires constant dialogue with the surroundings. In hot environments, the body responds with sweating, evaporating water through the skin to carry heat away. In cold environments, blood vessels near the surface constrict, reducing heat loss, while shivering generates warmth through rapid muscle contractions. Over time, human populations evolve traits suited to their climates. In equatorial regions, body shapes tend to be slender, with longer limbs that dissipate heat efficiently. In colder regions, bodies became stockier, conserving warmth. These patterns, observed by anthropologists, show the quiet ways in which the body molds itself to the environment over generations. Altitude provides another striking example. At high elevations, where oxygen is scarce, the body faces the challenge of sustaining life with thinner air. Short-term responses include faster breathing and increased heart rate, as the body works to bring in more oxygen. Over time, individuals may produce more red blood cells, increasing the capacity to carry oxygen. In populations that have lived at high altitudes for thousands of years, such as in the Andes or the Himalayas, deeper adaptations have taken hold. Their bodies have developed unique strategies, greater lung capacity, more efficient oxygen use, or different patterns of blood flow. These adaptations reveal how the environment leaves lasting imprints on human physiology. Written into the body itself, the skin also reflects the influence of environment. As noted earlier, variations in pigmentation are closely tied to sunlight. But beyond color, the skin adapts to local conditions in texture, thickness, and response to injury. In dry regions, skin tends to conserve moisture more effectively, while in humid areas, it remains more permeable. Hair distribution, too, reflects environmental pressures, with scalp hair serving as protection against the sun, while body hair diminished to aid in cooling. Sweat glands became abundant in humans, a unique adaptation that allowed our ancestors to move and hunt under the intense heat of open savannas. The ability to cool the body effectively gave humans an endurance advantage, enabling long pursuits and migrations. Food sources in different environments also shaped the body. Early humans living in varied landscapes developed diets based on what was available. Roots and tubers in some regions, fruits and nuts in others, fish along coasts, and meat in hunting territories. Over generations, the digestive system adapted to these patterns. For instance, populations with long histories of dairy consumption developed the ability to digest lactose into adulthood, while others, lacking such exposure, retained lactose intolerance. Similarly, the number of copies of the amylase gene, which helps digest starch, varies among populations depending on the prominence of starchy foods in their ancestral diets. These subtle genetic differences are reminders that what we eat and where we live are intertwined with who we are, shaping the very enzymes within our bodies. The immune system, too, has been shaped by environment. Throughout history, humans have lived alongside countless microorganisms, from harmless bacteria to deadly pathogens. In tropical regions, where diseases like malaria are prevalent, genetic adaptations such as the sickle cell trait offered protection, though at the cost of other risks. In regions with different challenges, other immune strategies evolved. The body's defenses are thus not uniform but sculpted by local environments, tuned to the specific threats encountered over generations. This interplay between body and disease is a continuous dialogue, with the environment shaping immunity and the body responding in kind. Even human senses have been influenced by environment. In dense forests, vision adapted for close range, with an emphasis on color to distinguish fruits and leaves. In open landscapes, depth perception and distance vision became crucial for spotting prey and predators across vast horizons. Hearing, smell, and taste all reflect ancestral needs, shaped by surroundings. Though modern life has changed the way we use these senses, their foundations lie in the ancient demands of particular environments. Every sense we experience today is a refinement of survival strategies tested in landscapes long past. The environment also influenced patterns of movement and endurance. Humans are not the fastest runners compared to other animals, nor the strongest climbers, but we are among the most enduring walkers and runners in the natural world. Our ability to sweat, combined with upright posture and efficient breathing, makes long-distance travel possible, even in harsh climates. This endurance allowed our ancestors to migrate across continents, adapt to new regions, and thrive in diverse conditions. Migration itself became a form of environmental adaptation, as humans carried their bodies into new climates and adjusted in turn. Culture, which is itself a product of human adaptation, also reflects the body-environment connection. Clothing, shelter, and fire extended the body's natural protections, allowing humans to survive in places their bare physiology could not endure. Yet even with these cultural aids, the body remains deeply tied to the natural world. The rhythms of sleep still follow the cycles of light and dark. The need for water binds us to rivers, lakes, and rain. Seasonal changes influence mood, energy, and health. In every aspect of life, the environment continues to shape the body. Subtly and persistently, modern environments, altered by human activity, pose new challenges. Cities filled with artificial light, noise, and pollutants test the body in ways different from ancient forests and plains. Sedentary lifestyles, processed foods, and global travel have created conditions unfamiliar to our evolutionary history. The body, shaped for endurance and adaptability, now navigates environments of abundance and complexity. This mismatch between ancient adaptations and modern settings is visible in rising health issues such as obesity, heart disease, and stress-related disorders. Even so, the body continues to respond, seeking balance in ever-changing conditions. At a deeper level, the body and environment are not separate entities but parts of one system. Every breath we take connects us to the atmosphere. Every meal ties us to soil and water. Every step rests upon the earth. The human body is, in truth, a living expression of its environment, molded by sun, wind, food. Our cells carry the memory of oceans. Our bones remember the demands of walking. Our skin reflects the light of our surroundings. We are not apart from nature, but continuous with it, part of its flow and transformation. In the stillness of night, It is calming to reflect on this deep connection. The body at rest, breathing gently, is in quiet harmony with the air around it, with the temperature of the room, with the unseen rhythms of the earth. Every adaptation within us, from sweat on the skin to oxygen in the blood, is a conversation with the world. To remember this is to see the body not as an isolated form, but as an environment in itself, shaped by and shaping the greater environment it inhabits. The human body and the natural world are bound in an ancient partnership, and the story of one is always the story of the other. 20. The future of the human body. The human body, as we know it today, is the product of millions of years of slow and patient evolution. Every bone, every organ, every system carries within it the memory of earlier forms, the imprint of challenges faced and solutions found. Yet, evolution has never been a finished story. The human body continues to change, quietly and subtly, shaped by the environments we inhabit, the choices we make, and the technologies we create. To consider the future of the human body is to imagine how this ancient process will unfold in the centuries and millennia ahead. It is not a matter of prediction with certainty, but of reflection on the possibilities that arise when biology, environment, and culture continue their dialogue. One of the most immediate influences on the future of the body is the modern environment. Unlike the ancient forests, plains, and mountains where our ancestors lived, today's environments are increasingly shaped by human activity. Cities filled with concrete and steel, artificial lights, processed foods, and sedentary lifestyles are unlike anything our biology was originally designed to handle. These conditions place new pressures on the body. Rising rates of obesity, heart disease, and metabolic disorders reveal the strain of abundance in a form of life evolved for scarcity. The body may gradually adjust, with small genetic changes favoring those who cope better with modern diets and lifestyles. Alternatively, cultural and medical responses may ease these pressures, reshaping survival not through natural selection alone, but through human intervention. Technology itself has become one of the most powerful forces shaping our bodies. Medical advances already extend life expectancy far beyond that of our ancestors, reducing the impact of diseases and injuries that once cut lives short. Vaccines, antibiotics, and surgical techniques have changed the rules of survival. With new frontiers in genetics, biotechnology, and artificial intelligence, the potential for further transformation is vast. Some envision a future where the human body is enhanced with implants, prosthetics, or even engineered changes at the genetic level. These possibilities raise profound questions. If evolution is the slow sculptor of life, what happens when humans begin to shape themselves intentionally? Will the human body continue as a product of natural adaptation, or will it become increasingly designed by its own inhabitants? Climate change and global shifts in environment will also influence the body. As temperatures rise and weather patterns change, new pressures may emerge. Humans might need to adapt to hotter climates, altered food sources, or the spread of diseases into new regions. Already, the body demonstrates remarkable flexibility, adjusting to altitude, temperature, and diet. In the future, this adaptability may again prove essential. It is possible that subtle genetic changes, like those that once shaped skin color or lactose tolerance, will continue to emerge in response to new conditions. The body's dialogue with the environment is ongoing, and future climates will write their mark upon us, just as ancient ones did. Another dimension of the future lies in the changing relationship between body and mind. The brain, already the most distinctive feature of our species, is now intertwined with technology in ways unimaginable to earlier generations. Devices extend memory, enhance communication, and connect individuals across the globe. Some scientists explore direct interfaces between brain and machine, potentially blending biological thought with digital systems. If such technologies advance, the line between body and environment may blur even further, creating a future where the human organism is partly biological and partly technological. This integration would not erase the body's evolutionary heritage but extend it into new realms. Reproduction, too, may take new forms. Medical technologies already allow for assisted reproduction, in vitro fertilization, and genetic screening. In the future, parents may choose traits for their children, influencing height, health, or even intelligence. Such choices would represent a profound shift, moving evolution from natural processes of variation and selection toward deliberate shaping. Whether this path will be pursued widely and what it will mean for humanity remains uncertain. Yet the possibility itself reveals how reproduction, the foundation of life's continuity, may evolve into new patterns. The human lifespan may also continue to extend. Advances in medicine, nutrition, and technology have already doubled average life expectancy in the last 2 centuries. Research into aging seeks to slow cellular decline, repair DNA, and preserve organ function. If successful, such efforts may lead to lifespans far beyond what we know today. Yet longevity raises its own questions. What does it mean to live for centuries rather than decades? How will societies and relationships adapt to such changes? The future of the body is not only biological but social, for the meaning of life is shaped by the communities in which it unfolds. Despite all these possibilities, it is important to remember that evolution is rarely dramatic in its pace. Most changes occur quietly, over thousands of years, through the accumulation of small differences. Even as technology accelerates the possibilities, the body itself remains grounded in its ancient design. We still walk upright on 2 legs, breathe with lungs, and circulate blood with a 4-chambered heart. We still carry within us the memory of fish, amphibians, reptiles, and mammals. Whatever the future holds, the human body will remain connected to this deep history, its form and function anchored in the patterns of life that came before. Perhaps the most profound element of the future is not what will change, but what will remain. The need for breath, the rhythm of the heartbeat, the warmth of touch, the bond between parent and child. These are not easily replaced or altered. They are the essence of being human, the quiet constants of our existence. Even as environments shift and technologies advance, these fundamental aspects will continue to sustain us, reminding us of our place in the continuity of life. At night, when one reflects on the future of the human body, it is calming to see it not as a matter of anxiety, but as a continuation of the same story that has always been told. Change is natural. Adaptation is inevitable, and the body will meet the challenges of tomorrow as it has met those of the past. Whether shaped by nature, culture, or technology, the human body will remain a vessel of continuity, carrying life forward through time. To imagine its future is to honor its past, to see ourselves as part of an unfolding journey that stretches far beyond our own lives. The future of the human body is not a destination but a path, one that flows quietly forward, carrying within it the resilience, adaptability, and mystery that have always defined what it means to be human.